Hey, welcome to episode number 4 of the BK Show. This episode's pretty special. It's the longest episode I've ever recorded while podcasting, either on this one or any of my previous podcasts that I've ever done. But it's one of my favorites. I sit down in this show with one of my good buddies, Ferrara. He's the founder of Bubs Naturals, and he's been in the e-commerce game for 20 years, which is just even hard to think about, right? Like, I can't even picture what e-commerce looked like 20 years ago. I think you're really going to enjoy this story and this talk with Ferrara. So tune in. I hope you enjoy the entire show because it's fantastic, and I'd love to know what you think. So without further ado, here is episode number 4 with Ferrara. Welcome to the show, TJ.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Dude, so when I met you, you told me you've been in the business for 20 years, and I looked at you and I was like, how can someone this gorgeous be like in the business for 20? You look younger than me, man. You look amazing.
37 now. Yeah.
But you've been in, that's amazing that you still, like, you're clearly a guy who works out a lot. I don't know how to tell. It's weird coming from another guy, but you're a gorgeous man, TJ.
No, it's fine. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's I think that's genetics, not work ethic. My mom and my dad look great. My dad's out like riding his bike still at like 61 and ate shit the other day. Like, can we swear on this thing, by the way?
Yeah, 100%.
Cool, yeah. Perfect. Yeah, ate shit the other day, like hopping puddles or doing something on a gravel bike, and was like laughing it off on the way home, I guess, according to my mom. So yeah, I have good genes. I was blessed with somewhat decent genes. My dad was Ranger, 82nd Airborne, and then rolled into marathons and everything else. My mom was like a college gymnast. So yeah.
So I've heard you talk about military quite a bit, actually. And your company that we'll get to later, Bubs, is all about somebody who is in the military, right? And so did you have any experience in there? I know you, like, every time I've talked to you, you know way more than I do. And I know very little about the military.
I attempted to get into it at 32. So, I mean, long story, like, which I can condense a little bit because you don't need all the background on it. But in high school, like right after high school, graduating high school, I was super fascinated Navy SEALs. I was just like, that looks really cool. Like kicking down doors, shooting people in the face, and blowing shit up. Why not? Like, that's every like high school kid's dream, I guess, you know? I mean, especially from the Midwest. I'm just like, all right, let's see what happens. And my dad, in his infinite wisdom, and I mean, God bless him for this one, to be honest with you, he was just like, there's been no male Ferrara that has went to college. You're going. I put in my time in the military, you're going. And I was like, in all honesty, like, it probably would have never happened. If I would have went to Buds, I would have washed out immediately because I was a puddle of shit. I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't an athlete. I had a good endurance background. Like, I could run for a while, bike for a while or whatever. But like, I played lacrosse. I played football. I sat the damn bench. I was not a coordinated kid, not a talented athlete at all by comparison to the rest of the people.
Were you as big as you are now back then? Or
no,
is this a recent thing?
No, I was like, I don't know. I was like soft. I wasn't like super active. Like, I'd work out or do something active like once a week, but I was always into like action sports. So it was like snowboarding, skateboarding, surfing when I could, that type of stuff. But there was never anything consistent. Definitely no weights. Like, I didn't touch weights until I was like 33, 34. Crazy.
I wouldn't have guessed that looking at you for sure.
I know. Again, good genetics. We can get into the CrossFit story. We can get into the CrossFit story for sure. And like, yeah, I put on 35 pounds of like muscle, complete body composition change in like 9 months. And not by accident. It was basically, not on purpose either for that matter, but it just happened to be that I was doing something consistently and my body type just responded really well to something that I've never tried before. I was always like, I went from action sports into like full endurance. So it was like a little bit of running, trail running, that type of stuff, but then cycling and like a semi-pro cycling career. And that was like 7-8 years of my life. And that was like 165 pounds soaking wet, like, eating a pint of blueberries for dinner and starving myself the rest of the day type thing. Like, it's a very unhealthy process, but did that and got into a wreck and just never found the go button for racing again at the end of the day. And my ex-wife at the time was like, hey, we should try this CrossFit thing. And I'm like, that cult's not my thing. Anyway, tried it, fell in love with it, had a great coach who's a great buddy of mine still to this day. And got into it, just like sucked into the cult. Like, it's just hook, line, and sinker, everything, buying the shoes, the shirt, I barely do 5 pull-ups. And I was just like, I need it all. What's going on? And after that, just kind of rode that into like a little bit of a competitive phase where I got like a coach and I started doing 2-a-days and all this weird stuff, and like went to the Granite Games and competed with the team and all this weird stuff. But yeah, it's always been I guess macro looking at it, I immerse myself super deep into something for 3 to 5 years and then pivot. And then 3 to 5 years and then pivot. And my work history will absolutely couple that. And the only thing, if any, that's been consistent, actually, I don't know. I haven't had anything consistent.
I don't think you're alone, though. My brother has made fun of me for this for years, right? Before I was an entrepreneur, it was like, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I used to have dreadlocks. I was in a band. I was in a death metal band. Yeah, cool. Anyway, I thought I was going to be a rock star, right? Then I left from like being a rock star and really moved to like a college town where all my buddies were going to college, and beer became my next new like infatuation for a few years, right? And ladies, obviously. And then I moved more into like fishing, and I was like hardcore into fishing. I had this huge tackle box, and it was like 3 years of that. And then all of a sudden I got surrounded by some entrepreneurs, and that's been my thing for like the last 5 years, right? So I kind of see how our personality types get bored pretty easily, right?
Yeah. So there's actually like scientific studies on this stuff.
Really?
Yeah. I saw a psychologist for a long time. Anybody's listening can look him up. Totally recommend. His name's Doug Brackman. He wrote a book called Driven. You can get it on Amazon. Plug. No, he's just a good buddy of mine, and it's actually a really good book. But for anybody that's in this space and has this experience, there's a lot of genetics underneath it, like an incredible amount of genetics. And I'll talk about that in a second as best as I can. I'm, not qualified to say a lot, but I can regurgitate some stuff. And then on top of the genetics, it's basically like the consistent, like ability to like level up or learn something new and that chase. And that chase is, what gets people like you or I, where we see something and it's like, this is kind of interesting. And then you dive into it, and then you're deeper and you're deeper and you're deeper. And next thing you know, it's like you're on the path to mastery or whatever you consider in that space. And yeah, it's really fun. So what is happening like I think it was like the mid 90s, late 90s, like functional MRIs came out, and where you get like live scans of the brain and actually see what's happening in real time. And a lot of people did some studies on alcoholics, and strangely enough, and there's 2 genetic alleles, and I may be completely botching this, so don't take my word for it, but there are 2 genetic alleles that come off of the alcoholism gene, and one is DRD2 and one is DRD4, and those represent 2 things. One is greater horizons. Cool, that's what's on the other side of the hill. Like there's something better there. Got to chase that next rabbit. And the next one's boredom. And those coupled together, 10% of the population has those, or some version of one or the other, or a combination. And that's the driven. And it goes all the way back to like Paleolithic BC time type stuff of hunters versus farmers. And you're either a hunter or you're a farmer. And I think a lot of people, like in our circle, our tight circle as entrepreneurs, hunters, 110%, right? The farmers in today's society are the 9-to-5ers, the dudes at the government job that work at the DMV that are totally cool, punching a clock, coming in at 9, leaving at 5 on the dot, going home, collecting a paycheck, and it's safety net for them.
Right.
Same thing. I plant a crop, I sit on my ass, crop comes up, I harvest it, I eat. Awesome. That's easy. But you don't have to go out and look for your food. And we're the type of people that like to eat what we kill, like consistently. And that is like, after reading that book Driven, it's like, I mean, for me, it brings me to tears every time I read it, because it's such a lonely space to be in. And I'm sure you've seen it before, where it's and had an internal feeling of like, nobody understands me, and 100%. What the fuck is happening here, and why doesn't anybody get what's going on in my head? And you're hypercritical all the time, hyper focused, but there's a massive element of shame to the whole thing too. You could be doing the absolute best that you ever done on something, and you're going to find a way to tell yourself it's bullshit. And
I feel like you're talking to my soul right now. Honest to God, like that describes me perfectly.
Oh, yeah, totally. And that's welcome to the club. 10% of the people in the world are like this. Unfortunately, it doesn't change. You're going to live with it forever.
So of that 10%, now I'm curious, how many of them are the high achievers versus the ones who, like you said, alcoholics, right? Like, and I went through a phase of that in my life where I drank, totally same. I drank silly. My mom died. I drank even sillier, and now I haven't drank since, right?
So most of those people do, and it'll come into addictions, and it might not be alcohol. It might be blow. It might be something else. It might be chasing sex and chasing girls or whatever. But there is some sort of addictive personality that gets in there that most people exhibit, that I've seen and that I've known. I mean, I can count like I just rattle off friends that are incredible at business, incredible at sports, whatever it may be, but there's always some tweak. And I'm trying to remember the
so you're saying in that 10% there's the people who are obsessed with entrepreneurship, which is what I am right now, right? And I think you are totally. Too. Then there's the people who are obsessed with CrossFit, right? Or obsessed with yoga, or like everybody has their own thing, right? But you're saying there's that 10% of the group who just take it a step further and it's never good enough and they're obsessed.
Exactly. And that's it. And that's funny you say yoga, because I was deep into yoga for years. I went to yoga teacher training, got cert, the whole 9 yards, and then dumped it like a bad habit. Dumped it like a bad habit. Didn't even think about it. I was like, one day I was like, I'm over this. Done.
Wow.
And then on to the next one. So yeah, I mean, this happens, and and then the addiction, is a part of it. And like, I think Tim Grover, he wrote a book. It's basically about LeBron and Jordan and that type of stuff. But it's the monikers in it are like cleaners and closers, and I forget what the book's called. But he goes into like basically harnessing your dark side, and that dark side being, what basically made Kobe and Jordan the next level. I mean, beyond hypercritical, but like all of the extracurricular, like gambling addictions and shit like that like if you just let that stuff in a little bit, according to him, who's like a world-renowned coach of top-tier athletes, like it helps. It goes to the next level. So it's just, there's interesting reads and interesting theories on the whole end. I just try to stay somewhat even-keeled, like, it's
impossible.
I know. I sent it on Saturday, like absolutely wild on Saturday. And then wear the Whoop bracelet, and my sleep's dog shit. I wake up and it's like a 25% recovery. And I'm like, okay. And I feel like shit on Sunday. Monday, it's a complete opposite, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going clean living. Let's see how many days I can have like a 95% sleep in a row. So like now I'm on that path, and probably by Saturday again, I'm going to be like, where's the wine? Let's go.
Well, look, your past shows that you're part of that 10%. Like you told me a few stories, and you've connected me with a few different people through this story, but I didn't know it was this big. Like, I'm just looking at your LinkedIn, like it goes way back, man. And I think we cut you off on the whole Navy SEAL thing too. So I'd love to like take it back there and like, how did this whole journey start? Because you go way back, being a marketing manager and just a ton of stuff in this e-commerce game.
Yeah. So it intertwines and stuff. And like, in all honesty, like the early Navy SEAL stuff brings me to present day with my business partner and weird stuff like that. I have it's a basket weave of a life. It's really bizarre. So yeah, back in high school, wanted to go to the Navy. Dad said, no, go to college, whatever. Came out of high school, found endurance sports, had a cycling career. And about 31, 32, I forget which birthday it was, but my dad called me. I was on my way home. It's like, hey, you've done a lot of cool stuff. By like 29, I had a consulting company, and I was consulting for like some really, really big tier 1 brands that we can get into. But he was like, hey, you've done really cool stuff. You've amassed a fortune. You've done great. Like, what is the one thing that you regret? Or is there anything that you haven't done thus far that you like want to attack?
He asked you this at 29?
Yeah. And
what a great dad.
Totally, 100%. And I don't even know if he remembers doing it, but like it was a very, very specific conversation that we had, and I like can pinpoint exactly where I was on the road. And I was like, yeah, I want to join the Navy. Like I wanted to be a SEAL. You told me no. Again, would have never made it. And I just physically and mentally wasn't like at that level at the time. And he was, he kind of gave me the, explore it, see what happens, try it out. And I was like, okay, cool. So I start like training up and, and getting connections and talking to people. And at 30, 31 or whatever age it was like, you need congressional waivers. You have to go to officer school. I went to college, so it would be a different route. You need a lot of passes, call it like medical waivers, congressional waivers, that type of stuff to get in past the age limit.
What is the age limit?
I want to say it was like 30. It's either 31 and a half or 32 and a half.
Oh, wow.
I was right at the cusp. Like I had like an 8-month window to make it happen. So I was like, okay, cool. Like let's get into this and see what happens and explore it kind of deep. And, intertwining the yoga teacher training, the lady that ran it, her husband was an Olympian. He's like one of my best friends, went to the Beijing Olympics. And after the Olympic career, he went to be a combat controller in the Air Force. Combat controllers, Air Force version of the SEALs. They're all special operations tier 1 operator guys, like high speed stuff. And so I called her up and I was like, hey, is Mike like around? Can he talk? Like, I want to see what's going on with this stuff and figure out like if it's for me, and maybe we could sit down and have a beer. And now he's like my homie. We're attached at the hip, but that was like my first time talking with him. Like, yo, is this something I should explore? And he was like, we feel each other out for a little bit. And he was like, yeah, do it. It's like, you'd be good for it. So, okay, cool. Train up. Then find like Seal Fit in Encinitas that was run by an ex-SEAL, and it's some, like mental prep, physical prep, whole 9 yards. It's kind of coupled with CrossFit. And I do their Kokoro camp, which is where I rekindled my relationship with my business partner. He was actually coaching at the time. And
what is that?
So it's basically Hell Week, like a simulated Hell Week. So they take you.
Terrible.
Yeah, they take you in on Friday and they beat the dog shit out of you until Sunday. You don't sleep. You're getting the shit kicked out of you, like physically, through workouts and just evolutions time and time again. I mean, you're cold, wet, and sandy for 56, 58 hours.
Wow.
And it's funny because Ben Greenfield actually did like a full recap keynote on his Kokoro, and it was funny. Like, some of the stuff's accurate, some of the stuff's not in it, but he was like, we had to do a 26-mile ruck one night. It's like 20 miles, but yeah, they walk you for 20 miles with like 35 pounds on your back up a hill, like up a massive mountain.
Wow.
And you're not sleeping. It's at 2 a.m. And I mean, it's mental prep stuff. Like, your mind's always capable of, according to the SEAL Fit thing, 20x of what you're actually thinking you can do. You can always push further. It
sounds very much like David Goggins, right?
100%.
It says you're using 40% of your what you can do. You're only going to 40%.
Exactly. And most of those team guys have like some sort of class book, mastermind reminder of that shit. The ones that try to make a business out of it, at least. So, Jocko, wake up at 4:30 every morning type stuff. And that's awesome. So anyway, went through the camp and I absolutely loved it. Like, I couldn't walk for 3 weeks, but I loved it. I was like, this was the greatest thing in the world and exactly what I wanted. Because in reality, like, after, call it 5 years of therapy, post divorce and everything, which happened 33-ish, I came to find out that it wasn't actually like kicking down doors that I was after. It was finding a team or a group of people that
finding community.
Yeah. That I would take a bullet for, knowing they would take a bullet for me, so to speak, quote unquote. But like, it's just, I wanted to be with my boys, knowing that they had my back and equally I had their back. And through that ended up forming Bubs, and we have like such a great scenario right now. I mean, it's amazing, but we do have that ride or die mentality of basically like, whatever you need, like, I got you. And
can we explore that a little bit? Because I feel like there's moments where I wish I had more of that, right? Like, I have my core group of friends. I think we all have our core group of friends.
Yeah, for sure.
I also have my core group of entrepreneurial friends, right? And I sometimes wish for more. I wish for like a community. Joe Rogan talks about it on his podcast all the time. I would love to buy like this big community, like in this town. I like this town, but I'd like to go buy a whole subsection and just build houses, and we all live there and we all hang out.
Totally.
And we all, you know what I mean? Like, how did you find that, other than, doing what you just did, right? Kicking your own ass on a weekend, like volunteering for this, which sounds terrible, but
circumstantial was part of it. Like, I lost just about everybody I knew besides my immediate family, and like 2 or 3 friends, including Mike, in like my divorce fiasco. All the kids, everybody I used to hang out with, like, basically everyone like not took sides, but just basically cut communication out. And I had to rebuild, which was great. Like, the circle at the time sucked, on the floor crying, sobbing, poor me. And then you start to realize the circle gets smaller, and you go deeper and tighter with everybody, in your space. And Sean, my business partner, was my current business partner, was one of those people. It was like a rekindle. We played the name game and the numbers game. We're like, oh my God, we've been in the same room for 20 years. We just didn't know each other. Like, back to when I was 15, we were at concerts, like practically shoulder to shoulder together, had no idea. And then through Kokoro, he was a coach in Kokoro that I knew and I met once prior to, like 3 years prior. And then 2 years after is when we rekindled and started Bubs. So like, all these little pieces start coming together, and really, like, I mean, I wasn't searching for any of it, like, on purpose or trying to build anything or force something. It was basically like, I'll let the relationships like come organically, and the right people will rise to the top, and the right people that you vibe with and that you have like good connections with, and that you like at the end of the day, Doug Brackman, you know, gives me one of the first times in the office, like, how many friends you have? I don't know, 3,000 on Facebook or whatever it is. I mean,
right.
It's like 200 reality, but like, yeah, 3,000 on Facebook. And he's like, cool. How many of those people would take a bullet for you? 3. How many would you take a bullet for? 2. Cool. You have 2 friends. And I'm like,
that's about right though, right?
Yeah, totally. No.
How many friends could you really call up that would ride into town with you when you needed them, right? No matter what that meant, like probably exactly. 2 or 3, right?
Yeah. And that's totally fine. And it was really exploring that and going incredibly just deep with those people, and then letting anything else new that was in the like coming along just either surface and show that connection and build on that, or yeah, no big deal. We got a good relationship / acquaintance type thing. Like, you're not the tightest homie in the world. I mean, you know, no offense by this at all, but like, you and I talk all the time. I love you 100%, but we're not shooting pictures, ourselves memes at night and stuff like that. And like talking about like what's going on the next day. Like, you have a group text, I'm sure, with some tight people. I have a group text with some tight people, and there's like 3 people in each one of those. And those are your core. If zombies are falling from the sky, who am I going to go in the war with? Like, that's who I choose immediately. And then, you know, go and help out. And it's kind of like sheepdog mentality stuff. So yeah, just explored the whole SEAL thing. And it ended October 15th, 16th of 2015. I got hit 65 miles an hour by a drunk driver. Oh, and herniated 2 discs in my C-spine, 3 in my lumbar, cracked ribs, like I'm TBI. And I already had one before, but it was like a major, like, you can't, it's a hockey player thing. You can't just keep layering. You start to go really dumb real fast. And I mean, just mood swings like you wouldn't believe, inconsistency, speech patterns, the whole 9 yards, that like anybody on the street or like a Whole Foods bagger would never look at me and be like, oh, he's injured. What's up? But like the people that were closest are like, yeah, you got a problem, dude. Like, you got to figure that out. So it was like sorting that out. And I would have never passed like any of the medical screening at that point. So that's when I met Doug and was basically like, yo, dude, I'm really lost. Like, I got to figure this out. And we just unearthed so much shit, but like, God bless him. Like, that dude was a 100% savior. I'd co-sign that dude forever. And the funny thing is, he only works with the 10% of the population. Like, he only works with driven people. He's got some high profile golfers. He's got some high profile baseball players that are out there. Not like PGA Tour type stuff, like big guys. And, yeah. And I've met some really, really rad people through him that are next level, like billionaire status.
How did you get hooked up with him?
Again, strangely enough, through my friend Mike's ex-wife, Katie, that taught my yoga teacher training. It was one of those, and I'm sure you've had a billion of these. Hey, this person needs help with internet marketing.
Yeah.
Can you talk to so-and-so? And I thought it was going to be a sales pitch, and I'm always down for a consulting project. So I meet the guy downtown, him and his business partner, who was actually a SEAL. His business partner at the time was Randy Kelly. He ran SEAL Sniper School and a couple other things for a while. And I sat down with him for like coffee and tea, like one afternoon on like a Wednesday. And we're just shooting the shit of like, hey, here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do if you're trying to grow this business. They were just wanted the lead gen. That was their whole thing. Like, hey, how can I just get more people in the pipeline and provide value before like providing value was like a, you know, foundation. They just wanted to explore that. And we started talking, and then it switched real quick. And Doug's a weirdo like this, man. He'll find an angle and he just goes in, and he's just like, he starts asking me some really, really targeted questions about me personally. And then basically just telling me my answers before they even came out of my mouth. And I was like, to the point where it started to get so weird that I was like, gonna like stand up and run. And I was just like, dude, this is tripping me out. Like, I gotta go. Like, heart's pounding. And I'm just like, this guy, like CIA status, like this guy knows me way too well. This is odd. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go, man. Like, we'll talk about lead stuff later. I bounce, we high five. A couple of weeks later, he hits me up and he's like, hey, I run this course. And I'm like, okay, what's the course about? We do sniper shooting and meditation and couple it. And I'm like, word, tell me more. And basically long gun shooting. And when you're not on the gun, you get 3 shots on the gun. And when you're not on the gun, you're meditating. And it is, if you read the book, The Rise of Superman, about flow state, there's a Hungarian psychologist that's cited in there, but it's about diving into flow state. The top tier athletes, the top tier, business minded problem solvers of the world, that type of stuff is how do you access that flow state that quick and like just put a boot in your ass and drop into that. And this is what this course was designed to do that. And there was a bunch of medical studies that he had done. He had people wearing heart monitors and brain scanners and all this stuff. And it works. I mean, it's bizarre. Spend 20 minutes on a pillow, meditating. They tap you on the shoulder. It's all silent. You walk over the gun, you squeeze off 3 shots, 50 yards, 150 yards, 275, 350, 450, 550, 650, all the way out to 1,200 yards where you're hitting an 8-inch target at 1,200 yards. Like, it takes months to teach people to do that. And as you're into this flow state, you're watching people that have never touched a long gun in their life go 3 for 3 at 1250.
Wow.
Calling their own windage and just doing it all by feel. It's the wildest shit ever. So I did that like 3 times. What do
you attribute that to? That we're all one, right? I mean,
it's being present. So it's funny because when Doug was kind of doing his presentations and not necessarily selling it, but explaining the concept, the easiest way that it came across to me was looking at Charles Barkley's golf swing. That was one of the examples. And I don't know if you've ever seen his golf swing. It's fucking hysterical.
If you haven't Googled it's pretty terrible.
It's awesome. Like the dude completely comes down halfway and stops.
Yep. And his knees are all cranked sideways. Yeah, he looks like
and he's got this, I forget what they call it, but it's like a weird hiccup or something like that in his swing. And he still hits the ball totally fine. But it's the panic of like, oh shit, should I do this? Should I do this? And getting rid of that panic is basically, before you even pull the trigger that you're going to hit the target. It's the most bizarre thing in the world. So I did like 3 of those. I brought Sean the one with me. I did a handgun one. It was super awesome. Like we did a couple of those things, but that's kind of where I kicked it off with him. Just like after seeing that, I was like, oh, there's no bullshit to this. And this is really weird. And it was, going back to like the real deep shit. It's like, I never allowed myself to feel happiness or celebrate a win. Like even on my own, just, sitting there, like I win a race or whatever, I raise my hand. That was really cool. Okay. On to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. And the ability to like stop and actually just celebrate a win a little bit and just give yourself, even if it's a minute of like, that was fucking rad. I want to do that again. And I never gave myself that ability. And it's genetics. It's just part of the thing. And that was like one of the first times that it was just like, oh, so this is what it feels like to be like happy and like really celebrate like something cool. And stopped, like Doug and I talked. I never did any consulting for him internet wise. And come to find out, he had so many people in the wings that were 10x anything I could bring to the table. Like it was a ploy for sure. But he ended up contacting me. I was living on a buddy's couch and contacted me, and he was like, hey, you're going to be back in San Diego anytime soon. This is probably 2 or 3 months after the shoot. And I was living on a buddy's couch in NorCal, like right post divorce. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to come back anytime soon. Like I might take a trip to Whistler and go snowboarding. Like I was on like radical sabbatical status. Like,
right.
I was just like, fuck life, I'm out.
As someone who's been divorced, I totally know what that feeling is like. Yeah.
And I was just like, all right, I'm going to give up on everything and just go have fun for a little bit. And he called me and we, FaceTime for a little bit or whatever. And he's like, well, you just get a flight out of San Diego. And he's just got a weird way of doing stuff. He's like, hey, just drive down, grab your stuff, get a flight out of San Diego instead. Come into the office. I want to talk stuff again. I'm like, all right, man, whatever. Like, sure. And I think it's going to be like a job pitch. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go down and pitch this guy for 10 minutes. And then, I'll either sign it or not. And then I'm on my way, go to Whistler for a week with my buddy. And I get in the office and it's like, sit down in the chair. Tell me about your mother. And like that, I was hooked in and I saw the guy ever since. I still talk to him occasionally, but yeah, it was a really bizarre path to basically unfuck a life.
I got a few questions in there. Like we both met a friend, Jeff Bandman, right? Does he do the same sort of thing?
So Bandman was Doug's next business partner after Randy.
Okay.
Yeah, Randy pumped out.
Because I remember when he was at a mastermind we were all at, he talked about bringing people out to the range, and I'm like, what are you bringing people out to the range for?
Exactly. So it's the exact same thing. Bandman basically, Randy introduced Bandman to Doug, and they ended up coupling and doing the shoots and meditations together. Yeah. So that's how I met. That's how I met Jeff. Was basically ancillary through Doug, and then come to find out he was in the mastermind with George too. And I was like, oh, what's up, dude? And he didn't know me when I first jumped into that room. And I was like, yeah, I just went right up to him. I was like, yo, you're Doug's business partner. I've seen Doug for 3 years. Like, what's up? And then we kind of hit it off.
And they're working with some big names is an understatement, right? Because I can remember some of the names Jeff mentioned. Like, they're the best of the best, right? Like they're elite, right? And so another part of the story I found very similar, at least for me, was like Elliot Rowe, who you also met, I think that same day.
Yeah.
He did the same thing to me. Like, this whole time I'm thinking he's marketing me, and we'll just get on a call and he has no reason to sell me at all. He's just like asking me questions that are digging deep into my soul. And now, I have a great relationship with him. I've had some calls with him, doing some of that guided meditation and really getting to places that I don't really want to talk about publicly, but like it's all the mental work that I needed to do. And it came about thinking I was just going to get marketed to, or he needed help marketing or something like that. I mean, that's how it all started. We got on a call. He told me a few things about myself I didn't know. And then I was like, hey man, can I just fix your website for you? And I gave him, like 10 things that he needed to fix. And all of a sudden it sparked a relationship that I definitely needed.
For sure. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and it's those dudes that just kind of have that way of unearthing a couple things, and you're just like, damn it. But it stabilizes everything, right? You're not sitting there pinging back and forth between unhappy and happy, or being a drunk and not being a drunk, or whatever it is. Like that constant rapid back and forth that goes on in most people's lives like ours. It slows that pendulum down a little bit. Like, I mean, in all honesty, like I'm no master at it. Even yesterday, I had one of the best days ever in like the last week. And at 4:00, dude, it was dark clouds over the head. Everything was raining. And I was just like, I need to go run, and like just super bummed. Didn't know why. And ran, came back, and like gave myself there's no reason you should be feeling like this. Like, you're going to be a writer for Forbes. You're going to launch this course. You're going to do all of these things. Your business is doing great. You have an incredible team, and like a little bit of gratitude, but a little bit of calling bullshit on myself. And like, why are you having a pity party for nothing? That's stupid. And come back to it. But it's just slowing that down and then bringing it in. So you're not hitting the low end and you're not hitting the ultra high end, because that's where shit hits the fan. But if you can widen that bandwidth of your ability to tolerate happiness up here and like dog shit down here, and you keep pushing that bandwidth and you're just hitting in between, all's good. The second you go outside that tolerance zone, holy hell, it breaks loose.
Well, once again, you're speaking directly to me, right? I have this same thing. I'll have a great morning. Recorded a podcast last week. Podcast was okay. Everything went good. And then at like 4:00, all of a sudden it was just like, I hate everyone. I don't want to be around. I don't want to be here. I can't stand these two little kids that are squawking. And like, I just had to go move. And so is that what helps you as well? Like, I had to get out, and I love going for long walks by myself and just like seeking boredom. Right. And so you said go for a run. Is that what helps you get out of those crazy states and really?
Yeah, it's usually, I mean, at this point with the COVID lockdown and everything, and I mean, I don't know how bad it is for you in the Midwest, but like California is like, it's communist country right now. Like you're inside and nothing's happening. Very little human interaction too. But like usually I'll schedule, like I'll lift every day. Like I get in Olympic lifting, I'll go into the gym and I'll clean and I'll snatch and do the whole 9 yards. And that's usually like, say my me time, but it allows me to settle and focus and kind of like drive it in. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. But now that I haven't had that and I haven't been into a gym in a minute, then, well, what am I going to do? So it's either run, it's either row, it's get on a bike, do something, but something active. But again, like the endurance stuff doesn't get my brain moving as much as like lifting a massive amount of weight or moving something really heavy does anymore. So it's, put on a 20-pound weight vest, go for a 4-mile run.
Yeah.
But yes, that 100% helps. And then in all honesty, like meditation is the thing that I've been doing for the longest. It's been the most stable of keeping me like somewhat present. And it's a very specific meditation, Zazen meditation. There's 2 subsets of meditation. back from, Japanese days, but there's like Soto meditation, which is the farmer meditation. 90% of the people sit there on a cushion, eyes closed, the whole 9 yards, and like finding their inner peace. And then there's Zazen, which was actually developed for the samurai warriors. And it's open eye meditation, and you're basically burning a hole in the floor with your eyes and sitting there for 20 minutes, like clearing your head, but hyper concentrated, hyper focused, and you're very, very in tune with what's happening. But your eyes, you're not in la la land. It's not like going to a float tank where it's like, ooh, cool, like it should be on shrooms. I'm staring at carpet, or I'm staring at this wood block, or I'm staring at this wall, or staring at this candle, whatever it is. So you're allowing yourself to get that visual stimulation that hunters, because they're so ocular focused all the time, sight's very, very important for hunters. It allows that visual stimulation. It allows you to realize that you are safe in the present moment, in the real world right now, regardless of what it is, because a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the fear and everything comes from an underlying sense of not feeling safe about something. And whether it's money or whether it's, a plane falling out of the sky, who knows? Like everybody's,
and not being present either, right?
Yeah.
You're not in the moment when you're worrying or being fearful.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been the number one of like bringing me back and, calling myself on my own bullshit for the most part. And then number two is exercise for sure. And I try to do both of those every single day. One's woven in the morning routine, but the meditation is, but the rest of like the exercise, I mean, if I get 5 days, 6 days a weekend, like I'm good. There's always going to be an off day, and there's always going to be something that I'm doing, or body soreness or recovery or whatever. But yeah, there is a absolute routine that I put in place for sure. Because otherwise, if I don't have that, like it's something in a tight package that I could do at home, on the road, wherever, then the wheels fall off real quick.
So I got to ask you about this meditation, right? So I've researched it. I've done a bunch. I used to, what is the one where you try to come out of your body and look at yourself? Astral project. No, that's not what it is. It's something, I don't remember what it's called, but I tried to do that way back in the day. And you hear some people say, sit there and try to have no thoughts, right? As soon as a thought comes in, get rid of it. Like that's nearly impossible, at least when you're a beginner. And then there's people like Naval who say just sit there and let the thoughts go by, which is what I do on a long walk. And so when you're doing this Zazen, what are you doing with your thoughts? When you're staring at something, are you just letting them go by? Are you letting them process? Are you trying to
I'm
stop
not processing anything. It's like you're just kind of letting them float in and out. And then, it's coming back to that nothingness, right? And trying to come back to nothingness. And sometimes it's 2 seconds and sometimes it's 20 seconds. Yeah, I'm not getting 20 minutes at that. I'm not even getting 5 minutes at that. But it's the reminder to be present. It's the constant training of your brain to be present. And that's the gray matter building. That's the physical like benefits that come out of meditation. Is like you're training a muscle at that point. You're training the muscle from when I got caught in the loop of being an absolute dickhead or being, so sad for whatever reason, to just remind yourself like, oh, you can come out of this. And the quicker you're reminding yourself, and it happens, like, I mean, at the very beginning, dude, days like that. Now it's like, you can call yourself out pretty quick and bring yourself back to normal, whatever it is, or back to kind of a center of whatever it is. So yeah, the process in the mind, trying not to have a thought or, not letting anything come in for sure. And just being there and being in your body, and not, in their monkey mind, it's, it's about being down here and not letting cortex and everything else take over. That's kind of the goal. It's just letting the elephant drive itself, so to speak.
Yeah. So this is pretty personal for me, but I'm genuinely curious if somebody, like, I really tried meditation. I gave it a real shot. And I'm wondering if you had any, like, I don't want to say out of body experiences, but like, I don't know how else to explain it. My mom's, she passed away at 47 of a heart attack. And we put her ashes in a lake she used to take us fishing as a kid. So I drive over there occasionally and I'll just sit there. And when I really, really tried this meditation thing, I remember meditating at the lake and I went somewhere and I saw my mom and she gave me a hug and she said, everything's going to be okay. And I've never meditated since because it scared the crap out of me, right? It was a great moment, but like, I don't know how to process that. And you might be even seeing me on camera right now getting a little emotional, right? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I'm genuinely curious, like, are you having any of those moments through meditation? And then how are you processing that? Or did you get any advice on how to process that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I got the advice, and this was the Doug thing for sure, because that's happened before, 100%. And I've went on retreats, like 7-day meditation retreats, silent retreat stuff in the Zazen, like Japanese prison camp is what I call it. It's you're getting beat again. Everything requires a physical beating for some reason with me. But Doug would always say to me, "It's only weird if you try to understand it." Huh. I've carried that with me forever. And Sean and I remind ourselves of that shit like almost weekly, where something pops. Costco's interested in bringing you in. No shit. What's the order going to be? I don't know, somewhere from 3 to 10 million. That's kind of life-changing. That's awesome. Let's talk about it. And then we sit there and we're looking at each other and we're like, hey, do we care to try to understand this? Nah, man. It's only weird if you try to understand it. I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, we're going to back off on that. But yeah, it's just, it's okay, cool. That happened. All right. On to the next one. And not going too deep in it because there's no reason to. Like, you're going to have a different experience, or you might have the same experience. And if you do, cool. Like, just
the way I'm taking the way you're talking about it is I should frame it in just gratefulness that it did happen. Not try to like, I'm always trying to understand the why to everything. I took apart TVs when I was 3 years old, like trying to figure out how they work and stuff. Right. And so, yeah, I think,
that's it. That's it. Right? It's being grateful present. And just be like, why? There's no reason to try. Like, I don't like it's cool. It's awesome that it happened. And that's kind of it. It's like, high five it, move on. If it happens again, high five it again. You're not curing cancer. So awesome. Don't put too much into it.
Well, I mean, that was certainly one of the most amazing experiences through meditation, but I also had just the most creative ideas. And it's almost like I went to this place that occasionally I'll find myself, beating myself up. Like, I know I'm meant for more. I know I'm not working hard enough. I know I'm doing the 40% as Goggins says or whatever. And through that meditation, I'll get to that like super high level. And it's almost scary to be there. I don't know if I'm like scared of success or scared of the size of the ideas that come out of there, because the scope of them is so much bigger than anything I've done. I don't know. Again, I feel like I got scared from these moments.
Yeah, I mean, it is scary. I mean, because one, being with your own thoughts. I mean, so in comparison, meditation camp or doing like a simulated hell week. I'll take simulated hell week 3 times over, back to back to back, over meditation camp, because that shit is scary. Like, being with yourself for a week and not talking to anybody and being in your own head. Dude, you go to some weird spots real quick. And especially, I mean, you're meditating for 14, 15 hours a day. You're up at 3 a.m. You're in the Zendo for a while. I mean, you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's cool. And you have like a working hour where you're doing some sort of community service around wherever you're doing, or wherever you're having the retreat. Like, they're usually just rented out general retreat spots. So you're like painting fences and doing shit for an hour, but you're back to the Zendo meditating until like 9 p.m, 3 a.m, 9 p.m, 3 a.m, 9 p.m, time and time again. And you're sitting there and you're sitting for 20 minutes to an hour at a time. And at points, during the second retreat, especially, I was 100%, I was going to have to amputate my leg. Like, I was like, I can't feel my leg. I'm going to have to cut it off. Like, 100% convinced that I was calling an ambulance in 10 minutes and I were going to have to cut my leg off. And you go to some really, really bizarre places, but it's funny because it's all bullshit at the end of the day. It's just like, damn, your mind is so fucking sideways half the time.
Yeah.
You can't believe your own bullshit.
And it's super powerful too, though, right? Like, once you start seeing almost some of the phrases that are like instilled in you too, and you can stop, look at it, realize that it's holding you back from what you should be doing. I don't know. The mind is powerful, right? And almost everything we've been talking about for 45 minutes here, or whatever it's been, has been about the mind, right? We haven't even talked about your e-commerce journey. So I don't know. This is stuff I didn't even know I needed to work on until the last couple of years. And now all of a sudden that's all I think about, right? Like, the e-commerce stuff just comes
I'll
easy.
Kick you. Yeah. When we're done, I'll kick you the Zazen meditation, like the handbook or little guidebook or what have you. And dude, give it a shot. It's like 5 minutes a day, and see where it goes. And it's different though. It's the open eyes does make a difference for people like us, because you won't have those weird visions originally. Like, you're just going to be looking at the carpet kind of going, am I doing this right? What's happening? How? And then shit starts to get weird. The floor starts to get a little wavy, 2 or 3 weeks in, and you're like, okay, that's trippy. And then, and other things start to happen. And then you finally just kind of find that flow and you're just like, why am I trying to figure this out? I just need to sit on the cushion and exploring that resistance of like, and that's the real deal. It's like exploring the resistance of, I don't want to try it again. That's fucking weirding me out. Why am I avoiding the cushion? Like, what is the resistance from me sitting down and doing this for 5 minutes? We've been talking for, like you said, 45, 50 minutes. What is stopping me from doing something for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Like, you're not doing it for an hour. You're capping out at 20 minutes, maybe. But what's stopping you? And it's the excuses and kind of looking at your excuses and you're like, oh, I got to cook breakfast. Yeah, breakfast is that important that you can't sit on your ass for 5 minutes and meditate. And you start to call yourself on stuff. It's cool. It's super cool.
These are the things I question every single day. Like, I truly believe everybody knows the right thing to do at all times. All the stuff we should be doing. We go to bed at night, man, I should have done that. Tomorrow I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to do this tomorrow. And yet we wake up every single fucking day and don't do it. And I'm victim number one. And victim's probably the wrong word, but like, I'm case study number one. I'm not doing the shit either on some areas of my life. And so, are you telling me if I do this Zazen meditation, I'm going to solve this? Because you're getting me excited.
I don't know if you're going to solve it, but you're definitely going to be more aware. How's that?
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely not a silver bullet.
Step, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a silver bullet. I don't think anything is. I mean, you can try it all. You can do psilocybin, ayahuasca, whole 9 yards, whatever your poison is. To try to figure that stuff out. And everybody's got their own thing. This particular meditation has been my thing. Everybody else's experience might be slightly different, but I'll tell you what, like, it does make you aware and it checks you in so many areas of your life so fast of whether, I'm going to explode at Sean for doing something that's probably completely unreasonable and I'm just boiling for whatever it is, or hearing it from him. Like, he'll get in the house and, might have had bad sleep, kids. I don't know what's going on in his life. I'm not there with a Nest Cam the whole time going, hey, dude, are you having dinner? Is your kids making a mess in the morning? Like, whatever it is. And you come in, you have to deal with different personalities and different characteristics and so many different factors and balance those out. And it's just like, you have that ability after a while of just taking a half a step back and just going, oh yeah, this isn't about me. Like, why am I making this personal? Or, empathy. Like, man, he must have had a really shitty night. And I don't put into practice as much as I should. But like, when I hear the vibe and I hear the attitude out of people, it's like, even asking that, yo, you doing okay? Like, you do get those triggers more frequently though, of like, not only exploring your own resistance, but being just a better human in general of like, oh, this isn't about me. Like, I didn't do anything to create this. Why am I making this about me? Like, remove myself. What happened to you? How can I help you? Is there anything that can happen there? So it just shift, opens up a weird move in a weird world. And by all means, I'm not perfect at all. I mean, I told you yesterday, like, deep in the pits for a couple hours, but the ability to come out of it a little bit quicker is like, the beauty of it, I guess. It's
a big shift though. The whole, it's not about me, right? Because at least personally, my whole life, it's been Ben's world and we all just live in it, right? And everything's happening to me instead of for me. That was a big shift, right? And just shifting away from, I don't know, really realizing, like you just said, empathy, right? I'm like, I don't know where that person's coming from, or the comment online. Who knows what that person's going through in order to make a comment like that? You know what I mean? When you're putting out content, and so. Yeah, that's a big shift, man.
Oh man, you want to tie it back to ecom, dude? Start answering some customer service calls.
Oh boy.
Like, that's where it really comes into place, when people are lighting you up for whatever it is. I mean, the smallest things. Example with Bubs happened the other day. I had somebody on Facebook Messenger. They saw a cross-sell upsell funnel or something like that, and we run multiple. I mean, if we're going to get in the ecom thing, A/B test, the real thing. Like, let's A/B test everything and find out what works, and then double down on it. And A/B test it again, and A/B test it again, and keep testing back and forth. This girl saw one funnel. She confused it with a different product. Understood the price was $43 here, $83 here. Didn't understand why, and just lit up the thread. And there was no reasoning with her, like, at all. And you just sit back and you're like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm running a test. How do I make this right? She wants $200 of product for free, effectively. Well, I'm not going to do that because that hurts my pocket. And I'm, there's going to be boundaries at that point. Like, I can't just give away free product to everybody, as much as I like to have a charitable aspect. And just coming from that understanding of like, yo, this lady's in Florida. She's trapped, like, you know, in a lockdown state for sure. She's probably a little antsy, and, you know, she's just not getting her way all the way around, and she's just not going to be happy. And, you know, you just approach it a little bit different. And at the end, it was like, hey, you know, that SKU doesn't exist right now. Like, I'll keep you in mind and I'll email you when it does. And that's it. And just leave it at that. And after that, you know, you're just kind of on your way and on to the next one. But yeah, you'll get really, really comfortable, like understanding other people, other problems, and like not taking them personally if you answer customer service for a couple of days.
So I've had that in a few companies that I worked for. They made you sit in customer service no matter what job you had, right? And I think I'm going to implement that as I continue to grow out my businesses, that no matter what position you come in for, you're going to go answer the phones for 2 to 4 weeks, because that's just a whole different world, right? Like, if you haven't met Karen, you don't know how to do your job.
110%. 110%, because you don't know. And I mean, this goes back to like just adding value to your general consumer base. You don't really know what they want. You think you do, but you don't until you actually listen to them and have a dialogue with them, and not a one-way conversation of just, hey, look at my email and try to buy my shit and give me your credit card. Like, that doesn't work. And it doesn't make people successful either. Like, it's not scalable, you know, just to shotgun a product out there, cross your fingers because you have a big list and see what happens. Like, talking to those individuals in the dialogue, that's what really creates it. And that's why we've been personally, like why Bubs has been so narrow on product. You know, we are still collagen and MCT specifically. That's it. We are possibly in the next month, and we've been saying this for a year, and we've had the premix like ready to go, possibly releasing a women's formula in probably the next 30 to 60 days. That's like biotin, you know, panathenic acid and vitamin C and like a couple other things with collagen and MCT for hair, skin, and nails. Just like, what can we do to elevate it and make it a women's specific formula? One, because our women's audience was at the beginning, like 15 to 20% of the company were very male focused. I mean, just because it was 2 dudes running the company and we don't understand where we're going with it, but also because like let's just broaden the horizon a little bit. And this is what people were asking for. Like, hey, do you have any specific stuff for women? And whether it was like on customer service or just our inner circle of people, like, yo, when you coming out with something like this, and listening to that feedback and kind of iterating your process, this will be like our first SKU out besides a single ingredient collagen and a single ingredient MCT. It's like our first blend. And I'm definitely terrified to launch it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I've got to imagine, based on the feedback, based on listening to people, understanding what's going on and putting that stuff into practice, that, you know, it's going to be fine and it's going to be successful. Yeah.
And having your team, right, listen to actual customer service, listen to your customers. That's going to help your marketing guy craft his message. That's going to help your Facebook ads guy write the right hooks. That's going to help any person 100%. That comes into your company, even your HR person is going to need to understand that customer, to understand how your customer service person's in a bad mood by 2 p.m. when they're, you know, responding to Karen. Like, I don't know if you want to tell the story. One of the other stories you told me, so for April Fools, you ran a Tiger King collagen, which I thought was the greatest promotion I saw on April Fool's Day. And then you told me that you had a customer call in about this, and I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing that story, but it was the funniest thing you've told me.
Yeah. So we, a couple weeks out from April Fools, it was a bucket list thing for me, through and through. Every company I've ever consulted for, worked for, tried to do something with. I've always wanted to do an April Fool's. I've always loved those weird things where somebody would make their site look like Windows 98 or something cool like that. Like, people always did weird stuff. And I was like, man, that's so awesome. And it's not harmful. It's funny. And if you really get it and you understand the company and the humor behind it, it's really funny. And it's like a hit. And beyond viral marketing or anything like that, like, I just want to make people laugh. And obviously the whole Tiger King Netflix thing comes out, and I'm watching that. I'm like, wow, this is a train wreck. This is super awesome. This is super awesome. So on a call with one of the guys in our business, Ryan and Sean, we're kind of doing just a 3-way sync up. And I was like, just off the cuff, yo, we should do a Tiger King collagen for April Fools. And it was like, yeah, that sounds funny. That'd be really hilarious. Well, Ryan, God bless him, went back, and he's one to chase things so fast. Overnight comes out with the whole thing. Like, comes back the next morning at 7 a.m. He's like, here, this is what it looks like. And we were like, oh my God, that's so good. Let's launch it. Let's create a funny story around it and see what happens. Like, what else are we going to do? We're on lockdown. This is going to be hilarious. So we launch it, we shotgun it out, and the emails, technique wise, if we want to get into email techniques, like I let a lot of the emails to our mass list come out from TJ at bubsnaturals.com, and I answer the responses. We don't get a ton, even at a semi-respectable list of like 20K active or what have you, 30K active, it's like we probably on a general email only see, 10 to 15 people that hit me back. Most of them I'll know too. And then some of them just a random customer. I woke up and there was like 75 emails. And it was one of two ways, no in between. This is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Go fuck yourself. And I was just like, I'm going through and I'm like, oh my God, this really hit a nerve with people. Like they don't understand what day it is. And I think it was perfect storm because people really didn't know what day it was. Like they're in the middle of lockdown, right? Like everybody's looking at the news and wearing face masks. Holy shit, I'm going to get COVID. Like this is not good. And people are losing track of physical dates on the calendar. And so I'm typing out responses to everybody. Like all the people that are like, that's awesome. It's just like a couple words. Hey, thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by and like loving this stuff. I'm glad you love our April Fool's joke. And then the real serious people of like, go fuck yourself. It was just like, hey, just so you know, this was a joke. We meant no harm by it. It's April Fool's. Look at the calendar. It's totally fine.
Well, and to frame it, like you actually made a bottle look like Tiger King College. I'm still getting retargeted by it, which is hilarious.
But
it's $3,000. It says we're not going to give you anything. We're going to buy a tiger with this.
Yeah. We mocked a whole bottle up and everything. And I mean, Ryan did a great job with it. And so at end of the day, after like sorting through like most of the emails and everything, respond to everybody, we're having fun. We're getting comments. Instagram's blowing up for the most part, but like it's getting out. End of the day, I get a gnarly email, like 3 or 4 paragraphs of what pieces of shit we are as a company for harming tigers. And I forget the exact wording on it, but it started basically with like, you guys should be embarrassed with yourself. How dare you harm tigers? They're an endangered species. You guys are taking these cages. What makes, because we put like in the ad that tigers were grass fed.
Yeah.
And the lady was like, no shit was like, what tiger do you ever know that's ever just eaten grass? Like she was going deep into it. And I was like, oh my God, like I really screwed with this person, like shit. So I obviously I wanted to correct it. I didn't want to hate it because she was like, I'm reporting you to the FTC and reporting you to, PETA or whoever else, like all of these people, and you'll never be able to produce collagen again. It went deep. It was like semi-threatening. And I was just like, whatever, like we're not doing anything wrong. It's a joke. Who cares? Like somebody's going to look at it and be like, funny. But she was very, very serious about it. And my immediate, and going back to meditation, my immediate reaction was going to be, just type it out.
To blast
go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Look what date it is. Blah, blah, blah. I don't need to take a step back. And I'm just like, still pretty stern about it. Cause I was just like, man, you just don't cold email somebody like this type of hate. Like this is serious. And I was just like, hey, I'd invite you to look at the calendar. Today's April 1st. Happy April Fool's. This is a complete joke. And then at the end, I took my one-liner, which probably shouldn't have did, but I was like, if you have any complaints or want to forward this to PETA, please also CC my business partner who's in touch with legal.
Boy.
And I mean, like immediately though, it came back. I think she understood like, hey, we're trying to be funny here. And she was super receptive to it. Like, oh my God, you got me. That was kind of great. By the way, I just realized I was low on collagen, placed an order, and like screenshotted the order.
That's the big payoff,
and I was just like, oh my God, like I hope I didn't guilt her into this, but if it happened to work, cool. But yeah, she felt like super, super bad afterwards. But that was like the really, really gnarly one. Now it's planning what's going on for 2021. I'm like, damn, what are we going to do next?
Well, and I think you nailed it. Like that totally hit people sideways, right? There was no this big April Fool's thing. Everybody's at home. We're all worried about COVID-19. And yeah, I woke up. I didn't realize it was April 1st, and I'm scrolling through Instagram, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I see this. Actually, I think I saw your email first, and I'm like, Tiger King Collagen? Like, I don't know. It hit the spot for me, man. It was hilarious. And the fact that I'm still getting retargeted by it is what's even more funny. Like, what are we, the 23rd today? And I'm still seeing it, in DPA ads on Facebook.
I kept it in DPA on Facebook and ad roll because I was like, you know what? Like, at the very least, it's still going to resonate because, like, Joe McHale did, like, a follow-up. I don't know if you saw, like, a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So the series was, like, 6 or 7 long.
Oh, I heard there was a new episode. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
Joe McHale did like basically a Zoom meeting with all of the characters except for Joe and Carol. But he interviewed basically all of the tiger keepers, the zoo workers and stuff like that, like maybe 5 of the main ones on the site. One, it's incredible. I don't think this is a spoiler by any chance, but like they look very different. Like all of them look very different than the original. Like you get on that and you're watching it, you're like, wait a minute, you got teeth again. That's cool. Like, yeah, it's pretty interesting. But like they released that. So I was like thinking about taking it out of circulation. And I was like, you know what? This thing's still hitting home runs. It's still resonating. Like it doesn't need to be just an April Fool's thing. And we say nothing of April Fool's. So I'll just let it be an ongoing joke for a hot minute. I'll kill it at the end of the month. But yeah,
I love the little reminder because it cracks me up every time. But this is like a good segue into like your actual business career. We've talked a lot of woo-woo. We've talked a lot of funny stuff, but like
cool.
Just scrolling through your thing, like I'm going way back to like 2003, right? You're a marketing manager and project manager. You're an owner of Nectar Creative Solutions. You're an e-commerce manager at SG Commerce, director of e-commerce at Lifted Research, sales engineer at Infosys Technologies, VP of e-commerce at Cobra Puma Golf. Like that's something I've definitely talked to you about before, being in a golf company. VP of e-commerce at Volcom. Like talk to me about like how this journey came about and how you went from looks like employment, right, into consulting and now into launching the brand. And I'd love to talk about Bubs because it's something I actually take every single day.
Yeah, I went back and forth. So many different ways in the history of the career, whether I was working, I've always loved this space. I've just always like, full transparency. I thought it was the easiest thing I could do for the most amount of pay. I wasn't digging ditches. I wasn't, using a 4-year degree. Like I didn't go to school for accounting, which bores the shit out of me anyway. But like, it's the hunter thing, like I can't be trapped in an office. I'll lose my mind. And there's always something different to do and something different to learn. And I was just telling somebody about this the other day, but like people that have been this deep in e-com for this long should be looked at as like the next COO, the next, CEO of major corporations, because so much if you've been in the space for a decent amount of time or have played in different components of e-com and direct to consumer, logistics, marketing, your customer base and customer service, platforms and technology, production, especially if you own a company, like, every component, intricate models and little nuances of those things that a B school or working just in marketing throughout your whole career and hoping to make a lateral move to run a company will never give you. You can't work in marketing as a marketing manager, coordinator, manager, director, VP.
You never get dirty.
Then go to CEO, and then all of a sudden you got to look at sales, and you got to look at trajectory, and you got to look at production. Like your mind spins. And I've known people that have been in that path, and they've succeeded, and some of them failed, but whatever, like happens. But that doesn't work. So I've just had a really fortunate time of being in a space of whether or not it was like working at pure play e-commerce, consulting for small, medium business, or, enterprise type consulting with Infosys, which is like the world's largest consulting company. It's like Accenture. There's 2 Indian companies, Accenture and Infosys. They have like 60,000 employees, and back and forth. So like originally back in the day, the project manager stuff was with my dad's company. He owned an HVAC company and just basically threw me to the wolves and was like, hey, you're managing this, $10 million expansion. Good luck. Okay, cool. I'll figure it out. And at the same time, I was building websites. I was really, really just interested in HTML and the way, web worked for whatever it was. And, and not even getting in the hosting, just like Dreamweaver stuff. I was just like, I don't know.
That's way
beside myself that, beside myself that I could like make something and it shows up and people come to it and that's it. I mean, before Google Analytics, Urchin, the whole 9 yards. And started playing with that because like I knew some kids that were decent at Photoshop and stuff. So I started learning all these little things and just spare time and just, again, being weird and rabbit holey and just deep diving in the one thing. And when I went to college, like unless I was in computer science, which for some reason didn't interest me because it was like at my school, it was like a heavy engineering background. It was like computer engineering / science. I wasn't a math kid. Like I was the worst kid at math. I'm great in Excel. Raw math, you hand me a pen and paper, I'll choke every single time to this day. Like 2 + 2 is going to take me a good 5 minutes. So
4 minutes.
4 minutes. So, no, it's 5. So I sit there and I'm like, okay, what can I do? So I start building websites. And then from that, it goes into, hey, you can start a web design company. Okay, what's that? And I had a push from a buddy of mine, and not into the web design space, but as much as like, hey, just start a company. Okay, we'll see what happens. My dad was an entrepreneur. Why can't I do something like that? Sounds good. So I start a company, which is Nectar, and I start doing little projects. Interesting enough, Cleveland Browns was one of my clients. Like I did like a microsite for one of their their fan site or what have you, and it was super cool. And I was like a subcontractor. You know, I was like 18 or 19, and I was just like the kid that knew the internet. And word got around to someone. They called me up, and you know, my Nokia 9910 or whatever it is. Hey, I heard you can build websites. And that was like the big thing. It's just like, I heard you can build websites. Yeah, I guess I can do something. Hey, can you do this for us? Okay, I'll learn Flash. Okay, I'll learn this. So start getting into a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. And then I, like the first foray into e-com, a buddy of mine that I went to high school with botched a summer internship. He was chasing a girl, lied to the CEO, the girl's dad, that he could build an e-commerce site for a semiconductor company, and hits me up in, God, I think this was first year of college, maybe. So like 2001, 2002, hits me up and says, hey, I really screwed this up. Can you help me do this? I told them I could build them a site that would sell stuff online. And I was just like, yeah, I'll try. And like Yahoo supported RTML, bread and butter. Doing 2 million.
I don't even know what RTML is.
Yeah, it was Yahoo's HTML. It was really, really weird, which interesting enough weaves into Sports Giant, Hockey Giant, because they were based on Yahoo, which is how I got that job. But I was doing something called skateshoes.net for a while, which was selling skate shoes online. I was doing like a couple $1 million a year of like Etnies, America DC, that type of stuff.
Drop shipping or what?
No, I was actually buying product, and we were running out of a back of a surf shop that I worked for in Michigan.
Okay.
So I had experience with it, but like raw e-commerce of just like, hey, unsupported, no platform or no SaaS platform, or, you know, whatever SaaS was back then, of just installing something on a server, putting SQL on the back end, you know, and actually developing a checkout across the board. No experience in that. But I go in and I, you know, suit and tie or whatever at, you know, call it 18, 19. And I'm talking to these guys just to bring my buddy out of like the shitter with this girl he's trying to date and the dad. And he was like, so can you build this a site? And I had like a, you know, full PowerPoint presentation, a complete bullshit. and I was like, yeah, I can totally build the site. And they were like, well, what's it going to cost? And I was like, well, you know, fortunately I got a pricing page up, and I throw the pricing up. And I mean, it was stupid. It was like, I mean, probably for the time of building completely custom e-commerce sites, they looked at it and they were like, holy shit, this is like a bargain. But it was like 10 grand or something like that. And the guy's like, okay, cool. Just talk to accounting and pick up the check on the way out. We'll just prepay you. And I was just like, fuck, what am I going to do now?
Right.
So I pick up the check, throw the money in the account, and I'm like, cool, it's green. Time to learn it. Feet to the fire. And I'm just deep on Google for months. And I think I had like a 3-month turnaround, like a 90-day turnaround on this thing. And it was like buying CDs, like loading, you know, like literally buying like preloaded CDs. And I forget the name of the commerce platform that I was using, but it was based on SQL, MS SQL. And like starting up servers and just any tutorial I could find on a blog or whatever, and putting this thing in place. And I got to basically a transactional, very, very lightweight transactional website with a search function. And, you know, it checked out. Payment processor was the only thing that had to be hooked up, and that was on them because it wasn't like, you know, Stripe wasn't around. None of that shit was around. It was like, call your credit card company, ask for these keys. And
this is like the greatest ad for Shopify ever right now.
I know, totally, right? Yeah, that's why I look at that stuff and I'm like, oh my God, this is so nice.
Yeah,
it's like you kids have no idea how easy it is. No idea. And, you know, you're getting keys from the credit card company and placing them in certain spots, and, you know, and then you're processing credit cards and everything's good. And I hand the site over, and they're stoked on it for the most part. I mean, it's just like, well, all right, it works. It's cool. So they take the site, I walk away, and I'm like, damn, this e-commerce thing's kind of easy. Like I was flow state the entire time. At no point did I really reflect on what the hell I actually just did. I just knew that I got paid way more than any 19-year-old should have ever been paid for anything. Right. And for the most part, I didn't lift a finger. I was sitting on my ass in a desk in my room, rabbit holing until 2, 3 in the morning for a long time and trying to do school on the back end. And of course, like I'm in my first year of college or last year of high school, one of the two, and zero interest in whatever they're trying to teach me. I'm like, fuck that. I'm making money now. Like I spent 90 days and crushed. Like if I can keep replicating this, like why do I need a $40,000 a year intro accounting degree? That's dumb. So change the path a little bit, B school and a couple of other things, and continue on the ecom path. And that's all I'm doing on the side. And funny thing is, just like a quick tidbit, I took an entrepreneur class. It was available, and I was like, this is probably 3 years in the business. It was like almost as I was graduating, and I was actually like making money. Like this was a tangible. I was still doing other things. Like I worked at that one of the first Apple stores in the country for a while, and a couple other things. But I was predominantly using those connections to funnel into the business. Right. So I work and I talk to some people at the store, and they're like, man, we really need somebody to do a website. And I'm like, I got a card, like hit me up. I do that stuff. And like a lot of the early Apple employees would do that. Like they were either video editors or sound editors or coming from a different job.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So we make it happen. And it was really fun. But it did that for a while, and I go in this entrepreneur class, and I have like a book of business, and I have sales, and I have like expenses or lack thereof, computer, cool, and assets and everything else. And I guys like, hey, your job this quarter is to make, or this semester or whatever, is to make a business plan of a real business that you run. And I was just like right out of the gate, like feet up on the desk. I was like, locked up, bitch. I'm good to go. I'm just going to turn in exactly what I have. So I literally just pressed print, handed it in, C-.
Wow.
And I'm like, and the dude was from Ford. He was a VP at Ford. He was at, heading up design or marketing or something like that at Ford. And he was like adjuncting at this entrepreneur class. And I went up to him. I'm like, dude, are you absolutely kidding me with this shit? I was like, this is a real business that is happening right now. Here's my bank statements. Here's my account numbers. And you give me a C- on this shit. And no kidding, like the dude was like 60 at the time. And he was like, the internet will never work. Oh, and I was just like, okay, that's cool. Let's see what happens. And yeah, that was like the one laughable, like semi close to FedEx story. You go to Harvard Business School, submit your FedEx plan, and they laugh at you. They're like, Federal Express is a joke. You'll never do this. Logistics on mass scale, kiss my ass. So yeah, I basically failed my entrepreneur class, but kept going, still down the path, leveraged it to move to California. Again, got into SEO, not like your level SEO, but 1998 SEO, white on white text, some weird stuff. And, and read a book, like no kidding. I think it's still sitting in my closet over there. I have to find it, but I think it's like IBM's Guide to Search Engine Optimization. Like, wow. Not kidding you, like sponsored by IBM is a book like this. And I wanted to move to California because I had some friends here and I wanted to surf. And I was like, okay, I'll go out, hang out with him for a couple weeks, and I'll see if I can interview a couple places. So there's a place in La Jolla called Site Lab, which was like the local SEO company. And they were doing like all the local businesses, kayak tours and whatever else. And I was like, cool, I can probably talk the talk. Let's crush this book first. So never SEO in my life. Fake it till you make it. Crush the book. Every keyword, KPI in my head, the whole 9 yards. Go into the interview, and it was like on the spot. So how quickly can you move out here? I was like, I don't know, 2 weeks? Okay, fine. Graduate, move out. At the same time interviewing for Site Lab, SG Commerce, sports giant, calls me up and in return an inquiry or what have you. Hey, can you come in for an interview? It's a director of e-com position, which again, handing it to a 22, 23-year-old was a stupid idea for them.
But you have a degree in experience, right? It looks good on paper.
Degree in experience, exactly. Lack thereof. But the Yahoo thing was what resonated with them, is that nobody knew Yahoo. And these guys were doing like 25 mil, 30 mil at the time on Yahoo. They were like one of the biggest Yahoo stores. And I walked in there, and I mean, first real look at like what a real business looks like. And this is, again, I don't know what the years on LinkedIn are, but let's call it 03. They were running like Sage, or like what's Mass 500, I think was back then, but like a good ERP system like SAP. They didn't care what they were selling, though hockey equipment was their shit. They were one of the original drop shippers. I mean, just incredibly forward thinking. It was run by a family of Canadian guys. Two of them were like real estate magnates that were brothers, and
Makes
then a
sense why
cousin.
they're in the hockey stuff then.
And then a cousin was an attorney, and like, dude, they just had a humming team, like C-suite, that was just really, really good, and a lean team and some warehouse workers, and they owned everything top to bottom. And, you know, and they formed these weird partnerships with people like Nike, and they call them up and they'd be like, hey, why don't you just like FTP us, you know, CSV file of all of your inventory twice a week, and we'll list it on our site. And if it sells, you guys could just ship it for us and cut us a piece of the sales. And then they started doing bulk buys of like old inventory for these guys, where they call them up and be like, hey, let's just see all your age stuff. And, you know, it'd be like, call it $30,000 of like retail. And they're like, you know, we'll buy it for $2 a product, flat rate, whatever it is. And we don't care what it is. We'll just close it out. So they started doing like a closeout business, a drop ship business, and then like a full bore, like warehouse, like real deal business. And I walked into this place for an interview and I was just like, oh my God, like the shit I could do with this. Holy hell, let's make it happen. So 2 weeks after working at Site Lab, after I moved to California, Shale, the guy that owned SG Commerce at the time, or the president, called me up and he's like, hey, we want you to work. Oh, I already took a job. I work at Site Lab in La Jolla. Whatever we're making, we'll double it. Really? You want to see my W-2 or anything? So I literally, like in 2 weeks, again, just wild. It's only weird if you try to understand it. Like just punted right out of SEO or lack thereof, running Excel sheets and implementing them H1 tags, and booted over to Sports Giant and ran that for maybe 18 months or something like that.
I'm sure it took a lot of convincing to take your 25-year-old self to move from the Midwest to California too.
Yeah, absolutely none. And I ended up growing them a decent amount on the hockey side. I think we put in, again, this is field of dreams e-commerce. Like this doesn't happen anymore. So these numbers are not accurate in today's dollars due to inflation and everything else. But it was like 25 to like 38 million in 1 year by just doing stupid, easy stuff that you know, I learned out of the SEO book for IBM. And like just really, really crushing. And then we started a secondary division where they thought, because eBags was like the hot shit for luggage at the time, they wanted to come out and hit the .com boom for luggage. So we started a company called Luggage Giant, and it fell on its face so bad. I had a buying background at the time, which is where I met Sean originally, the surf shop. I was doing all the buying for the surf and skate shop. And so they found out I had a buying background, and they threw me to the wolves on top of like running SG Commerce, like the hockey giant side of things. And they were like, well, just find all the luggage and buy all the luggage, take the meetings with the buyers and everything else. And I was just like, okay, cool. Like, what's the budget? I don't know, $3 million. Buy like $3 million of luggage.
So are they just looking to arbitrage anything and everything?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. I think it's still in business. I think they were still crushing for a while unless they sold it. They were the people in the space. It was great. So tried the luggage business, and the luggage business ended up failing miserably. Like stuck with so much inventory, just pre-bought. And I was doing what I was told at the time. I didn't know whether it was smart or dumb, but like it was field of dreams e-commerce, you know, like everybody just thought you could launch a website and make $1 million.
Right.
And I got thrown out of that whole business. I mean, not physically thrown out or fired or anything like that, but it was like, yo, we spent way too much. We got to cut costs across the board. You know, you're costing us 80 grand a year or whatever it was at the time. Like, yo, sorry, you got to go. Okay, fine. You know, I'll go be sad for a couple of weeks. And I was looking for another job at the time, and you know, I had all things that I think are maybe a pitch or a lightweight pitch that turn into something a little bit more long term. A buddy of mine hit me up and he's like, "Hey, LRG is looking for somebody to help them send emails. That's it. Send emails." Okay, cool. Do you want to have a meeting with them? Sure. So I talked to the tech guy in house real quick, and then ended up sitting at the desk of the COO for a hot minute. Again, I'm like 25 or something like that at the time. And I was like, hey, you guys ever think about like building a website and selling to like people instead of selling to like Karma Loop and letting them know? No, I've never thought of that. How much is it going to cost? I don't know. We could probably do it for a couple $100,000 if you want. You have a warehouse, like we hook it in. Like, I mean, just total, like, again, from my ass numbers.
Yeah.
And the dude's like totally bought in. I was supposed to send out this project was supposed to be to send one email for a warehouse sale. And 3 weeks later, I was like brought in at a ridiculous rate to build out a full direct-to-consumer site in a short period of time. And fortunately, this is like when I call it mid-market platforms were starting to surface. You know, you had your IBM WebSpheres, your ATGs and stuff like that were covering like Old Navy and Gap. And then the mid-market stuff, which was like Market Live, Truition, Demandware was right on the cusp of coming out. I think I actually interviewed them at some point, but it was like 1.0 Demandware. And
I don't even know what any of those are. That's insane.
Oh yeah, Demandware's still around. Demandware was bought by Salesforce, I think. Okay. And wrapped up into like Salesforce Commerce now. ATG is owned by Oracle, and IBM WebSphere, if it still is an existing platform, has still been on the IBM umbrella for a long time. But it's Portal Commerce versus like heavyweight SaaS model. Demandware is probably the closest thing to Shopify. Shopify, when it started, was absolutely like dumbed down version of Demandware. Demandware was like a $20,000 a month platform.
Jesus.
So you had to be doing some volume, and then you paid for cartridges, which were basically like apps that you plugged in. You paid for cartridges, and they're like, oh, you use Bronto email service or ExactTarget. We have a cartridge that matches that. And literally it was like 99% of them at the time were like FTP drops. So it's like, we sync your list, and it's like an FTP drop, and then you get a cron job that picks up the CSV file that may not be formatted right. Like it was all these weird things. So we did a decent amount of money at LRG the first couple of years. I ran that for a while, and it absolutely ran me ragged. And then I dipped out of that, and that's when I started like going to the platform side instead of being on the client side. And I was like, damn, I don't want to do this. And it was partially because of one of the sales guys that I met that I bought a platform from. The dude was driving like some fancy ass car, and he was selling selling tech. And I was just like, damn, this guy lives in Ladera Ranch, California. That's so nice. Those houses are like $2 million. And he's like 5 years older than me. Whoa. And he's driving this sweet car. Whoa, that's cool. And like, I was just chasing money, again, chasing shit for the wrong reasons, and just thinking it was going to make life easier, and, you know, just attaining a massive house or whatever was going to solve all of my issues. And, and so I talked to him, and I actually became his business partner when I was, at Cobra and Puma and Volcom and the whole 9 yards. And I'll get to that in a second. But I was talking to him about it, and he was like, yeah, why don't you just go be a sales engineer for somebody? Because you have tech chops, and you can make as much money, if not more, being a sales engineer, because the sales guys don't know the tech. And I was like, all right, cool. So I did the longest interview process ever. It was like a 12-month process, maybe more, with Infosys. And appropriately so, I didn't know at the time, but appropriately so, I was one of 5 people like onshore in the US for the division I was working with. And I worked with a great sales guy out of Arizona, Dave Bradford. God bless his soul. We had some really, really fun times. And we went straight tier 1 enterprise as it gets. Apple, Macy's, Williams-Sonoma, Victoria's Secret, Walmart, you name it, we were there. Nike, like the whole 9 yards. And I was trained up on the platforms and basically mocking out very, very lightweight, here's what's possible. And I had a full team of developers in India that I could call on any time to do anything. So it was a lot of clickable HTML, wireframe, that type of stuff. And then architecture, site architecture, and how we're going to connect X component to our system and make your business run better. And it was a lot of, not necessarily a lot of theory, but just a lot of ones and zeros, and making sure the lines were drawn in the right ways and handing out docs back to people. But I got 200,000-300,000 miles of travel in a very, very short period of time, and some great exposure into the red tape world of enterprise, which, arguably, if nobody knows enterprise or enterprise sales, unless you worked for IBM or something like that, like if you deal with a CVS or a Walgreens or a Victoria's Secret, the amount of approval it takes to get anything done to this day is absolutely stupid. And I was doing 2 things. I was doing commerce, and I was doing internal knowledge sharing through a platform called Jive, which went public, and I don't know where it's at now, but it's basically was the enterprise version of Slack before Slack. It was knowledge management, getting everybody on one page, putting them in different channels and stuff like that. And there was a competitor product called Lithium too, and I was implementing both of those, as well as a couple commerce platforms, Hybris and ATG and WebSphere. And we were kind of like the all-in-one, like we can put this stuff together. But just understanding enterprise and like the red tape and the sales process and the cycle and connecting with the right people and how things actually work on that world was awesome for experience, and also incredibly off-putting of like both like a gut check of like, do I want to be one of 60 or 70,000 employees that's never recognized? They don't know my name. I'm literally an employee number and an email address to these people. And it's super fun. Expense accounts are great. It was cool while it lasted, but it was an 18-month last. And I retired. I mean, literally retired as I was doing that job. I was doing the job, but I was fully retired.
But the bureaucracy is mind-numbing, man. I totally get it. From the outside, right? I interviewed my partner, Brian. We acquired a company from a $1 billion company. This was just a fragment from them. And it took a year. Yeah. And then when we like actually got on the call to do this, 12 people had to get on the call to say yes in order to like move one email address. And we're like, what the fuck is this?
It's
like it made me appreciate small business so much more and how agile we can be.
Exactly. It's just the dynamics of it are so much cooler. So small and medium, like mid-market, if you're doing 100, 200 million, great. You get anything above that, God bless it. Like you got to step back and do something else. I mean, unless that's your thing, and keep doing it. It's super fun. So yeah, again, retiring at that time, I was like 28, 29 and maybe a little bit earlier, but I was riding my bike like 6-7 hours a day. And working like 2 or 3, unless I was traveling. And then when I was on the road, I was on the road. But for the most part, when it was at home, because I didn't have an office, because the office was in India, and there was like little satellite offices and like close to me, but there were like 2-seater cubicles. Like you didn't have to go in the office. So everybody worked from home in the States and just had great experience with that stuff. And, and had a lot of fun because I was riding my bike, and the sales guy I was working with was a cyclist too. So it was really cool. And got out of that, and again, weaving backwards and taking, the look back and partnering with somebody from a previous life. The sales guy that sold me the platform when I was at LRG called me up. And this is like, July or August of when I was at Infosys. And he was like, hey, there's a company in New York called Fresh Direct. And Fresh Direct was like the Amazon Prime Now of New York City. You want groceries delivered to your door? They got you. They need to do an audit. They want a platform audit. Or where are you at right now? I'm at Infosys. I'm a sales engineer. Cool. I need your help. Can you do this? Sure. He's like, we can make like $100,000 a piece for about 6 weeks of work. And I was like, awesome. Sign me up. Literally turned in the notice. I was like, okay, gotta go by. Click. See you never. And jumped over to do this audit, and basically like moved to my buddy's couch for a couple weeks in New York and started doing like site audit and architecting their system, because they were so fragmented. They didn't even know it was there. There was no SOPs in place. There was no, here's where the data comes from. Here's where it goes to. Here's how we improve. It was just a Tijuana skyscraper, layers upon layers of weird stuff that nobody had a clue about. Like even their tech guys were like, it's this system. We don't know what comes out of the system, but it's this one. And we did like it was like a 300-page PowerPoint of like who, what, where of this business and whether or not they should re-platform. And got paid, signed off, and I was just like, wow, that was crazy. My business partner, Mike, at the time was less motivated by the money because he could just print it. He was an ATM machine. He was one of the best sales guys I've ever seen in my life. And I was just like, dude, let's go do this again. So like a month later or 2 later, we got a call that Volcom needed something similar. And Volcom at the time was owned by Kering, which is a French conglomerate that owns Gucci Group and everything else. And they have sport and lifestyle side, which is like Puma, Cobra, and then Tree Torn, Outer Known, which is the Kelly Slater brand that they kind of started up, and then Electric Sunglasses. And I was like brought in under that umbrella. We did an interview with Volcom, came on as their VP of e-commerce as like a consultant, but like we were running the division and had the titles internally as like VPs of e-com. And then like immediately after, we're parlayed into Cobra Golf because Cobra was part of the umbrella. And then Electric Sunglasses, and then just started ticking off brands because we were kind of gold standard of like making these guys grow. Sport and lifestyle side, trim them up, got them good. Luxury side, started consulting on that, trim them up, got them good. About 3 years later of just cashing stupid amounts of checks, and this leads into, hey, my dad going, hey, you made a lot of money, what's going on? We were printing money. It was like the greatest ride I've ever had still to this date. We were just...
What exactly are you doing for these companies to grow them? Like, especially back then, right? This is 2012, 2013, still kind of the wild west of the e-commerce, right?
Yeah, so there was a lot of SEO. We were actually Magento at that point, like across the board. They had a couple Demandware brands, but we were Magento for the most part. And I was like really tight with a lot of the guys like Roy Rubin and stuff like that at Magento who started the platform. So I'd like speak at the conferences and we'd have a lot of ins and a lot of support. But we were basically re-platforming them in like first things first is like look at the P&L, like how gnarly is it? And if they were losing an egregious amount of money, it was like, okay, let's strip them down to ground zero and make them profitable for whatever it was. And then once we get that foundation set of like, you're spending, 200 grand on a platform when you make 150,000, in sales, like, come on, that's not smart. Like, let's get you down to something more affordable and more attainable where you don't have to scale into it. Then we start looking at marketing. And I mean, it was just choosing at that point because the budgets were so great. And again, it wasn't our money. We were puppeteering a lot of it. So it was choosing the right providers, finding where the bodies were buried due to both of our history, which was great. And like, not just a selling point, but like actually factual. It's like, we know this provider sucks, this provider sucks, this provider sucks. It's sell the dream, service the nightmare. We don't want to deal with them. Let's find ourselves some good ones and bring them in. And
so you're just cleaning up their stack essentially?
Yeah.
Saving them money and making it, simpler.
That's it. And just optimizing. And then we got into redesigns and replatforming. And like, we architected the division called shared services. That was like a one-stop shop for all the brands where we were managing all the brands out of a little group instead of each brand having their own e-com division. Like we were just doing everybody and multi-platform, multi-tenant, multi-currency, multi-warehouse, and just pushing everything out, and everything would come into us. And then we disseminate it to each one of the brands. So we started running like, probably close to a couple $100 million e-commerce or something like that. I mean, it was wild.
Jesus.
And yeah, it was super fun. And my business partner, I would say midlife crisis would be a lightweight way to say it, but he had a couple of issues and then told all the right people to fuck off, and the money went away overnight. And I was living like a dumbass at the time. I was in NorCal in a house that cost like, renting a house that was like near $4,000 a month, driving, Land Rovers and BMWs and buying Rolexes and Panerais and just being stupid.
But we all go through that phase, right? Like you think it's never going to end and you spend like it's never going to end.
Totally.
Yeah, it took me a long time.
Well, I mean, so many people warn about that, right? And you hear it and you're like, that's never going to happen to me. And guess what? It fucking does.
Yeah. Somebody said SYM to me once and I went, what? And they're like, save your money. It does, it does go away and comes and goes. And,
Totally. And that went away. And then it became like, hey, do you want to be a SEAL? Let's concentrate on this. Let's do some lightweight consulting with another business partner. So I pull on a couple clients, like did some sunglass companies, and, I had some good stuff that was like year, 2 year, 3 year long contracts, nothing crazy, where I was doing the same stuff and like, either running the show, finding people that were good with PPC, people that were good with SEO, or doing it myself, depending on what the volume was. Facebook ads, Instagram ads, as it started to come out, that was like 14, 15, where we could start like really generate and like get into the platforms and build lookalikes and do cool stuff like that. And, in hitting like massive ROAS, like 12, 16x with my eyes closed, where I'd just like hit go on a campaign and come back a month later and it was still scaling at like 18x at like 2, 3, 4 grand a day. And I was just like, all right, well, it's still working. I've never looked at it. That's cool. Like I didn't have to optimize anything. It was so nice.
It just worked back then.
Totally. And then it just kind of wound out. Divorce hit, basically lost all my clients, lost everything, couple $100 in the bank account. Like, no kidding. Like I think I started Bubs with like $314 in my bank account. It was something so small. Like,
where is that transition though? Right? Like you said, you kind of hit rock bottom, right? All the money disappeared. Then you started over, and then you get divorced, which for me, that was also a rock bottom for me as well. Right. And then you kind of move into your new universe. But where's that shift from like you're helping other companies and getting paid handsomely to do so?
Yeah, for sure.
To saying, I want to start my own company.
So that's the interesting component. And it's like, so going through the Seal Fit Camp, Kokoro Camp, I rekindle with Sean, my business partner. He's a coach. He's kicking the shit out of me for the most part, verbally, and a little bit physically, but,
he's intimidating. I'm not going to lie. When I met him, traffic conversion, you're like, this is Sean. I'm like, he seems like a genuine nice guy, but there's also like something about him where you're like, that dude's gonna kick my ass, and I don't know what it is about him.
It's funny, in certain situations he'll give that vibe off, but he is the biggest teddy bear, like hugest heart of a human. Like, not even kidding. Like, hey, I mean, that is the dude that gives you the shirt off his back. Like, you call him if you want to move a chair or a table or your whole house, and like 99% of the time he'll be there. I've seen him give so much of his life away just blindly, and like without like expecting return on any front, whether it's helping a business out, helping a friend out, giving somebody a truck for, you know, for whatever. Hey, just take my car for as long as you want to. Take my tools for as long as you want to. He's just that guy. He's super awesome. We rekindle a couple years after that Kokoro camp, post divorce. I moved back down. I'm trying to find a house in San Diego, and I'm working out at a CrossFit gym in Encinitas, and he's rowing. And I'm lifting in the back, and I kind of walk past him, and I look, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Lake. What's up? And he's done rowing, and I walk past him again. I kind of purposely shoulder him and bump into him, just give him a little shit. And I'm like, you're not going to say hi? What's going on here? and he was just like, oh my God, it's you. Like, what's up? How have you been? Like, how's everything? Like, total catch up, but like, you know, we were never friends, like tight friends or anything like that, or even email text acquaintances. It was just like we knew of each other. And he was working at a company that he helped start called PowerDot. And it's an electronic muscle stimulate company. It's like, you know, put electrodes on your body and shit jumps, and it's supposed to either build muscle, help recovery, blood flow, et cetera, et cetera. We need help on e-commerce. As the usual conversations start.
Right.
No shit. Do you? Are you still doing that stuff? You work on the web, right? Yeah, I sure do. So I go in and I meet the team, and, you know, 10 minutes later, I'm like, okay, here's your 10 problems right now, right out of the gate. Like, you can fix these things. You can start going. I can do ads for you. I can do this. And they had some big investors at the time and a big bankroll, and like weren't the best on handling burn rate, but nonetheless, like, they were doing all right. And I was like, okay, cool. This is like how we can get this going. And they were on Shopify. And this was like my first deep move into Shopify. It was just like understanding everything top to bottom. And
I'm sure that was eye-opening, right?
It was like, cool. Oh, yeah, it was super cool coming from Magento, to be honest with you, because I was like, you know, Magento still, especially enterprise, it's self-service. They hand you a license. You put it on a server. They ping the server and say, yeah, your license is still valid and your site's running. Second, your license isn't paid 1 year, they shut down the license. The server goes away. Like, very transactional. Shopify, 10 times easier. $20 a month, $50 a month, $400 a month, $2,000 a month, whatever tier you're paying for. You got a site. Cool. There's no custom building templates. There's no looking at FTP files and figuring out where the PHP is buried, and, you know, and changing core code, which is like the holy grail of you're a fucking idiot with Magento. Like, I mean, it was like,
I feel like Shopify is like the perfect mix though, right? It's user friendly enough for, I don't want to call them dummies, but user-friendly enough for the dummies, but also you can get in there and do all the stuff you want to do, right? If you understand CSS and HTML, you can make the changes you want to make.
Totally. But you don't have to understand SQL. You don't have to understand PHP unless you're doing something else. And it's like, okay, I don't have to. Like, I could write Liquid. Liquid's Ruby, dude. It's so, like, Rails or whatever, but like, it's so easy for tags and segments in this setup. Like, in my head, I'm just like, okay, I think like this in buckets, and I can connect these buckets. And it's like, it's a lightweight PHP for the most part, but it does so much more. It's just easier to code. And I was just like, wow, this is like really, really fun. So I jump in with these guys and I start working with them for basically sweat equity for the most part. And they might have paid me a little bit, but I don't actually remember if I was getting a check, if any, from them. And I was doing a bunch of marketing, and this is when like Snapchat geo-targeting just came out. So I geo-fenced the CrossFit games and came out with like different like looks and feels for filters for people and stuff, like right on the cusp. And I spent like 60 G's doing it. I mean, it was stupid. And that burn was not communicated appropriately through the channels, both on my end and people that were like looking at the burn. And there was like mutual misunderstandings across the board, like total fuck ups. Across the board, mine, theirs, whole 9 yards. And I got thrown out so fast. Like, it was basically like, we didn't expect this much of a credit card bill to come through. You're an idiot. And I'm like, yeah, but you 4x your sales. Like, let me do the math for you and show you, like, even with the cost of goods that you have and the margins, like, you're fine. You just managed money wrong. That didn't matter. So got booted. A couple months later, Sean I think because he was attached to me, was looked at in a very not awesome light, and bounced out of there too. And this
Guilty
is where,
by association.
yeah, totally, 100%. And I mean, sorry at the time that he had to deal with that shit. Not sorry now, because we have such a great thing going on, and it was like a necessary to happen. But where Bubs actually started is Sean and I, were just going to do consulting. And Bubs was never a thing. Collagen was never a thing. Jumping into anything supplement related was never a thing. And I ended up putting together a couple like prospective clients and friends and stuff like that. They were like, hey, can you help us organize everything? Can you help us get on track for Q4? Like, where are we at here? And we started pitching like January to like maybe a little bit later, February to July of like 2017 or something like that, where we were putting together like all these pretty big businesses like in the action sports space of like little consulting projects. And it was like, we had like 30 people on the hook. Everybody wanted to take meetings with us because one kid knew the internet and the other one was an ex-VP at Quicksilver. Like, he knew partnerships and knew everything. It was super smart. And we had, again, so many clients on the hook where it was like, man, if half of these hit, we're going to make $1 million this year. This is going to be so cool. And like cash and carry $1 million because you're consulting. So it's like no cost of goods, no out of pockets. What's between my ears? As hard as we work, we make money. And over the course of like a week, we started crossing off people that weren't fucking buying, that were either, this is too much, I can't afford this, we're taking a different direction, we realize that we can do this on our own, or or whatever the excuse was. Just a litany of literally excuses, financially, all of them financially, because we weren't working for like $2,000 a month for these people. Inherently, just by for the audience to know, action sports doesn't pay shit to anybody. So if you're pitching them, like, there's a good chance, unless you got backing by a big company behind something, you're not getting paid a damn thing. It's a glory job of like, look at me, look where I work. So that actually came to life, and it was just like crossing all of these things off, and we're like, shit, there's nothing. I'm sitting at his house drinking coffee one morning, there's a tub of collagen on his table, and he's raving about it. Like, yo, this is the best thing ever. It's helped my joints. And he's like basically like rattling off the benefits on the side of the bottle, just like reading. He's like, hair, skin, and nails. My hair's longer. My nails are growing. I'm like, cool, man. Like, you really take that shit? You love it? So rewinding my experience in collagen and kind of that market, I arbitraged Amazon prior, like a half a year prior to divorce. I had a bunch of accounts with a small lightweight CrossFit site that I was running like personally, where I was like kind of drop shipping and kind of like creating little supplement accounts with people. And I hit gold on Amazon. I became the only distributor, or the first distributor on Amazon for Bulletproof, the brand Bulletproof. And it was under one of the companies, and I was getting pallets delivered to my house.
Did you have a deal with them, or are you buying them?
Just buying it wholesale,
retail, and arbitraging them up on Amazon?
No, I was buying it wholesale. Okay, and flipping it over to Amazon. Like, they thought I was selling it on my own site, as like most people backdoored stuff back then. And
still do.
Yeah, I know. And I know there's some people that do it with Bubs, and I'm like, I know this game. Stop playing that. And got into that, and it was like, I was making money, so much money, again, for a short period of time. But the point of that business was to get my ex-wife out of being an attorney. She hated it. And I was like, if I build something for you, hopefully you'll be happy. Like, here, take this. And it didn't work, obviously, clearly where I'm at right now. But I had experience with collagen on Amazon. I knew it was a quick grower because I was selling a ton of it. It was like one of my top movers. Is like Bulletproof coffee and MCT, great. But the oil, especially for us receiving pallets at our house, the problem was the oil would break. And like, you just can't seal oil with oil and glue don't mix. Like, not happening. So like any of the safety seals on the top would just bleed everywhere, and like 2/3 of the supply would be gone by the time it got to our house. And freight, it was a big production fiasco. We got credited for it and everything, but it was a nightmare. But those were the big movers. So it's MCT oil or XCT or Brain Octane or whatever they're selling, and collagen and coffee. And we put it on Amazon, and like overnight, it was like 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, like a day. And I was just like, holy shit, this is so good. And the margins sucked because like, their margins at the time, you were buying it, God, 40%, and then Amazon was taking their cut. So you're razor thinning the whole thing. I mean, if you're lucky,
and they probably didn't have much anyway, right? Like they were buying they were private labeling from Now in the beginning, like Now Foods, and just slapping bulletproof label on top of it.
So all in, like it was like, yeah, you're doing $20K a day, but you were netting 15%. Maybe. So it's like, it was still a decent clip. I mean, as a household making 20, 30 grand a month, 40 grand a month, net, like not bad, but
pretty good.
Yeah.
Don't kid yourself.
Yeah. I mean,
it
was cool for sure. Coming from the previous consulting life, that was a joke. But, again, it was like, okay, this covers the gap. This is fun. And again, you go deep into Amazon, you learn Amazon. Cool. Like there's no harm here. I'm getting paid for learning something for the most part. And that's what triggered the Bubs conversation, was my experience with that, knowing the trajectory of college gym. And I was like, you take that, you really love that. Let's start a company? ? And within like 10 minutes, and I mean, no secret, the story's been everywhere now, but within like 10 minutes, we were like, we got to do something cool for charity. And Sean's former roommate and kind of childhood best friend was a guy named Glenn Doherty that died in Benghazi during the Hillary Clinton scandal, like 2012 terrorist attacks in Benghazi. And, it's just a good dude that was helping save American lives, that was a Navy SEAL and has a charity after him. And I was like, okay, I couldn't serve. I really wanted to. I want to be still immersed in that community because I really appreciate just military. I appreciate the high-speed operators. I like that lifestyle of things. I think it's really cool. It's admirable. It's something awesome. I can give money back. That sounds fun. I can start a company. That sounds fun. I can work with a homie. That sounds fun. And it's just like lightning in a bottle, and all this stuff added up. And it was just like, let's roll and see what happens. And, here we are 3 years later, almost from concept. And it's, it's going to be 7 figures plus this year, or 8 figures plus this year. And I'm like, yeah, we're on track to do 8 plus this year. And I was just like, man, it's a wild ride. It's such a wild ride. It's so fun and so cool. And like, I couldn't be more happy with, the team I'm working with and the people and everything else. And it's just been fun. And, and the path to get here was odd, but
yeah,
I'm stoked.
For sure. No, and I'd love to ask you a bunch of questions about it, right? Because I met you and I'm like, number one, when I met you and I met everybody in that whole mastermind, I didn't really know what consumer packaged goods even were, right? I come from this drop shipping world. I'm drop shipping high ticket products, things that are made in the United States that are big dollar figures. You're not going to find them in a store. And then I come to this world of people selling $20, $30, $40 items. And I'm like, number one, how the hell are you selling $20, $30, $40 items and making any money? And then, beyond that, all of a sudden they start telling me about their valuations they have and the funding they've raised. And I'm like, wait a minute, how the hell are you valued at that? Like, I sold my first business for 25x, I think. So just barely over 2x. You know what I mean? It was 40K. It was the greatest day of my fucking life. But you guys are talking like 10 times revenue and like crazy fucking numbers. So first off, tell me, when you decided to get in there, right? There's some Goliaths in the room, like Vital Proteins. You were already selling Bulletproof. Like there's some big names in the room.
Some big names, yeah.
So what made you say, like, I think I can come in here and compete with these names?
To be honest with you, it was DNA woven into the business at the very beginning. It's like, we're not going to do this unless we can do the best of the best. Whatever it is, it just needs to be the best. Glenn was a tier 1 operator, like, SEALs in general, team guys in general, combat controllers, Rangers, special forces, whole 9 yards. Like, you're putting out. You are the upper echelon of human beings, as far as I'm concerned, for forward thinking and for putting your nose to the grindstone and getting shit done, whatever that shit is. So we need to have that woven into the company from a product standpoint. Like, if it's not delivering what Glenn stood for, helping others, being the best, constant self-improvement, and we're not doing it. So there was definitely some tests in that. And I mean, it was rudimentary bathtub gin tests. Like, let's buy everyone on the shelf and put it all in coffee and see if anything dissolves. Let's go get this raw material and see if it does the same. But the point was, like, let's try to find, something that's good. And everybody, we were all like sports minded. So like whey protein, BCAAs, like we had an idea of quality. We're not scientists, but like we can read stuff and we have ideas of quality. And we definitely have homies that are really, really tight in the science game. So it was like bouncing ideas off of people. But competing was never the market is this size.
Yeah.
Like I think, again, everybody can go out. Vital Proteins, Kurt. Thanks for the inspiration, dude. By the way, he's the guy that owns Vital. I've met him a couple of times. He's been at a couple of our supplier meetings. He's a super good dude. He was actually at a wedding that I was at. He's, commands 1/4 of the collagen market and is projected to be $6.9 billion. Do the math, right? Guy has literally in the Forbes article that was released a couple of weeks ago. That's $1 billion company. He's got 200 plus employees. Like he's going international. He's doing a lot of big things. They have rapid deployment. Like they have something good going on. We never wanted to stand up against that. It was aspirational of like, yo, this is what it could be. But I mean, even early on when they did press releases for like taking money from Kavu when they never needed to, they're taking 20 some odd million for a fraction of the company. And I was just like, damn. But you read the growth rate of their company, it was like 273% year over year for 5 years running. And you're just like, is that even possible? Like talk about unicorn, right place, right time. Holy shit. Like, I mean, when you think about it, like from inception of company to present day, I think they've only been around since like 2015 or 2014, but like Slack's been around since like 2008. I mean, like wild, like iterations of trying to get traction and trying to get growth and pivot. And dude, that for some reason, it was just a unicorn. And then you look at Dr. Axe and then you look at Bulletproof and you're just like, man, maybe it's not a unicorn. Maybe it's just a space. Maybe you can ride this wave a little bit. That'd be cool. And it was a total like garage project, science project. We were just like, wouldn't it be cool if we could sell 1,000 tubs? 1,000.
So did you draw inspiration from those monsters? Like, obviously they're fantastic at branding. Their packaging is incredible. I mean, Vital's you were talking about different variations of your product. They've got 4,000 of them on the shelf at Whole Foods.
I think literally they have the Forbes article that came out. I think they said they have 190 SKUs or something like that. I mean, 80% of the revenue probably comes from the 1 or 2 SKUs that are the big movers. But for the most part, they have a ridiculous amount of people of forward thinking. Like they're always trying new things. They have the ability to. They have the cash. There wasn't much inspiration besides who is the best in the space and how do we beat them. That was it. From branding and packaging and everything else, that's Sean's lane. And we brought Ryan in, my buddy Ryan that I actually worked with at LRG that did a lot of the branding and the packaging. He's a genius when it comes to that stuff. And we brought him in immediately. And we're like, here's our ideas. Can you make it match? And it was like some color palettes based on like psychology of color that Sean loves and like, no shit, like restaurant inspiration and like action sports inspiration and weird stuff like that we're trying to tie in. And we're just like, we like these logos, we like these colorways. Can you do it? And Ryan came up with this freaking gorgeous looking, interesting enough, I think, this is the original tub right here. Nice. Looks completely different than what we had now, but it's collagen. So we did like a branded bee and like opposed to our Hex logo now. And our Hex logos were like on the back. And this is, for anybody picking this up off the shelf now, I mean, this is just a straight novel. It's hilarious. Like the whole thing is just like, how much are you really trying to cram into this? And it's like, it's obviously evolved. We've done like 10 label iterations since, but even the top is just like, are you serious? Are you going to read all that? Like it looks like a Dr. Bronner's bottle.
Like I know what's in my cupboard right now, so it's weird to see that old. And I know we're on a podcast right now, but I see it on video. See that old version to where it's come to today.
Yeah, we still. That's one of our best performing ads. Strangely enough, like and I can't change it because it's the one that does it. We tried to replicate it, doesn't work. That one is the hitter. And so we brought Ryan in to do that, and then we did collagen, and it was like, hey, can we sell 1,000 tubs? That was like the benchmark. Like, how long will it take? And 2 months later, it was like, oh, we did it. So do you want to keep doing this project or what? Yeah, sure.
So where did you launch? Amazon then, or did you launch on your own site or both?
Both simultaneously. And that was like the blessing of the history, right? I was like, I know I can push this on Amazon and I know I can do a site. So let's do both and see what happens. And we had some lucky press at the beginning with Fox News and stuff like that. During Veterans Day, we launched around Veterans Day and did like 100% of the proceeds Veterans Day to charity. And it was a total garage project and it worked. And then we took the money from round 1 minus charitable contributions and rolled it into a 2,000 tub order, rolled it into a 4,000 tub order and just kept doubling down. Like, I mean, talk about like Mike McAllowitz, like clockwork and everything else. And like pumpkin plan and all that is like, we slow rolled it, but not not because of books we read or Inc. inspiration or Fortune magazine inspiration or anything like that. It was just like, this is the way we're doing it because we both put in very little money to the company and like literally scrapped together like change between the seats to be like, okay, let's make ends meet and see what happens. Both out of a job, both unemployed, both back against the wall. And it's like, we're either taking consulting projects and doing this, or we're going to go head down and make this happen. And I mean, it wasn't a unicorn. I mean, you know, it was $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, like on our site, Amazon, same thing. And we were just doing like these slow little runs, and it was really, really cool for the first year. And you'd see some spikes and you see some hits, but like we couldn't sink in 50 G's to marketing. We didn't take any equity. We didn't pull out any equity. We'd take any investment, any VC, anything like that. Like there was nothing. It was just us. So it was like, what's your Facebook marketing budget? Let's do $10 a day and see what happens. Yeah. You know, and this is 2017. So it's like
I've been there, man. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's on the uptick. And now you're doing formulas based on CPA and your cost of goods and everything else. And you're starting off now with like $200-$300 a day in a campaign just to see what hits the test. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, let's see what $10 a day gets us. And we get a sale, 2 sales, 3 sales, and things are hitting. And we launched that Hazel ad with the American flag behind him when he's holding this tub. And it blew up, like roof off.
I don't know if I know what that is. What is that?
It's the one where Mike is behind the American flag and he's holding this tub and he's like, I'm a redneck from Texas. Like, I don't take anything else. It was just a buddy of ours that was a combat controller was just riffing in the car. We were going surfing or spearfishing. I think it was like Labor Day or Memorial Day one year, like early on, like 2017. It was like March, and we were going, I think it was me, Sean, and him in his truck, and we were going spearfishing. And Mike's just a character and a half when he comes unglued, and he was mouthing off about something, and he was like, I just need to get on video and tell people that I've had, you know, half a dozen surgeries and I went through the Olympics and blah, 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 and this is the only damn thing that works for me. And the way he said it, Sean and I looked at each other, we're like, dude, let's go back to your garage. I'm just going to pull out an iPhone and film that. Can you just do the exact same thing sitting down so I can get you on film? And we chopped it up in like 15 minutes and launched an ad. And total, like, have no idea. This is just a testimonial, top of funnel, and see what happens. And I think I created like a small lookalike audience after like the 400 or 500 customers that I had, and just tested a couple of interests, a couple of lookalikes, and the lookalike hit, like the 1% lookalike hit. And I just started dumping money into it, and we sold out. Like out.
I love stories how it's just some random ad. Like totally. you try to make these polished ads, or you try to do everying that the way you're supposed to, you know, and then you have these random ads that just go off.
And it's really weird. Like, and I have no problem telling people this. My own ad account for my company has been the hardest one that I have ever worked on in my history of e-com of 20 plus years. Like, dude, the hardest ads. And it's not because I'm hypercritical, or it's not because of the budget. It's literally the hardest to find a hit. CPG is hard, obviously, to find hits and get people to convert into buying something for a lifestyle. Like, whereas, you know, if people are looking for cycling apparel or t-shirts or whatever, it's a commodity, it's an easy buy, it's an easy purchase. But like, there are things that I've done high quality production, like out in the mountains of like multi pieces of film stitched together, and, you know, and motion graphics and the whole 9 yards, and I'll launch it and it'll be 16x all day long, and I'm never looking at it again. And the one low quality iPhone X production that we did, where like, we're like, maybe we can upload 4K. Let's see. That has hit time and time again for us, and it's been the best performing. We've done 1-minute testimonials. We've done, you know, other videos with similar scripts. We've done different people, all of them like unpaid homies that have come on that actually believe in the product. And like, we don't want to inflate numbers or do anything crazy like that. But the intention of the ads are great. The direction is typically the same and similar. But this particular one, because of the background or because of what Mike's saying or how he says it or tone of voice or whatever it is the only one that's like hit hard. And there's other ones that'll, you know, basically fatigue really quick for the most part. And it's like DPAs and Hazel, my gold standard all day long, and I can dump money into them and I'm good. A different version of that, maybe not so much. Maybe it's hitting the 2X, maybe it's hitting the 3X, but it's not what it originally was and what I can hit for other companies typically. And I'm just like, man, this is really bizarre. And strangely enough, a couple weeks ago, we decided, okay, COVID, like let's refresh some ads and see what happens. And we did a 6-second, basically almost a boomerang of like slamming together, making a Bubs brew, what we call the Bubs brew internally, but collagen MCT blended in coffee. And we just did a 6-second slam together and it hit. And I was just like, there is no way that I ever thought that would work to any of our audiences.
Where are you running that?
Facebook, Instagram.
But are you running it as like a GIF, like a HTML5 that's going, 6 seconds after 6 seconds, or it's just 6 seconds it ends?
One playthrough, 6-second non-looping, and that's it. Wow. And I was just like, oh my God. And like right out of the gate, 10x, 12x. And I was just like, no shit. Okay, cool. So
I think it has anything to do with people being at home and having to make their own coffee and they can't go to Starbucks and they're like,
I'm sure there's so much behind it. But I mean, the whole Gary Vee thing, if he knew that Google was going to become so expensive when PPC came out on Google, he would have squeezed the lemon until it's dry and he would have 3x, 4x his $100 million business at the time. And that's the moniker that I'm trying to run by. Like as much as people, have mixed feelings of Gary Vee, I think the foundational shit that he says is 99% genius and true. And I'm just like, why wouldn't I squeeze this lemon until it's dry? So let's pump dollars into it. And audience match works and stuff like that. I mean, Friday I signed on for the board of advisors of a company that does psychographic data analysis for customers. So
sounds interesting as hell.
Super cool. It's super cool. So if you've ever watched the Cambridge Analytica documentary on Netflix about how Trump won the election, like the theoretical of how Trump won the election, both shotgunning massive Facebook ads, but how he understood the audience or how Cambridge Analytica understood the audience, they basically served surveys to humans of like, what Harry Potter character are you? Figure it out now. And those questions in the surveys led to a psychographic data, not demographic, which is age, location, that type of stuff, but psychographic. How open are you? It's an ocean model is what the acronym is, but how open are you? Conscientious are you? It was openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And on that scale of 1 to 100 for each, there are certain triggers between each of those that as a consumer slot you into a certain area. So if you're highly neurotic, maybe you want to use words like safety or, proven model and shit like that. And you want to use these 3 colors in ads. It's like, it gets really deep in the psychology of the consumer and like stuff that like I weird out about. But this particular company, and it's a Shopify plugin, and I'm happy to tell people if you guys want to put the app out there. I mean, I don't know but it's called Pinpoint. AI.
I'm super interested.
So Pinpoint.ai, and it's phenomenal. There's a beta program out there you can get into. But basically what they do is they take your entire book of business and run it against their internal, which is basically backed up of general US demographic data. So they put you against the average consumer, Ben against the average consumer and how your buying pattern and your data points yield to, are you neurotic, open, blah, blah, blah. Cool thing is on the back end of this, guess what they do? Tag everybody in Shopify that fits certain profiles. Mm-hmm. You export those people, you create a lookalike audience. You serve them on Facebook what you're looking, where like basically what you should be. So what keywords you should be using in your copy, what colors you should be using, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to say it's guaranteed wins, but it has been the easiest win for formulaic ad placement in a long time. And
how far down that rabbit hole have you got? Like, is it
still
in beta, right? Is it still working yet? Is it anybody can get in?
It's totally working. Anybody can download the app. Anybody can sign up for the beta. You'll have a call with the guys and do some stuff. I don't know what the pricing is. I literally just signed on the board of advisors on Friday. We're like going through all the steps and everything like that. But I've been using it for almost a year. I found it on a AdRoll, like AdRoll Zoom collab. They were doing something with AdRoll and they had like a 3-minute segment on it. It was so small. Like it was an hour segment on AdRoll of like building your business for Q4 or something like that. Then I jumped on it, was barely listening to it. And all of a sudden I heard psychographic data and I was like, oh shit, I just watched this documentary. Like, let's get into this. What's going on? and downloaded the app immediately. And I think it was probably like one of 5 people, I don't know, that I know. I felt like one of 5 people that downloaded it and started going through stuff and just like using everything that was in there. And dude, it hits. It's crazy. And finally, like I talked with the team a couple times. I was sharing some, some learnings with them, some knowledge with them, and like shit just happened to hit. And it's super, super cool. So coupling that with some different ad placement methodologies is like, I really truly believe that a lot of e-com is formulaic. Like there's a lot of art to it, but there's also a lot of science to it. You have to understand your cost of business. You have to understand your goods, your CPAs, your click-through rates, your cost per click, your CPMs, everything. Like there's got to be little triggers on everything you have a handle on. So, if I dump X dollars in and my CPMs are this and my click-through rate is this, it's going to spit out Y dollars.
Right.
Theoretically, like, right. It's not 100% true model, but it gets you to a spot where you can be comfortable throwing in a decent amount of money as a founder of a business, or even as like a marketing guy internally, where you're not sure. And the CEO comes to you and is like, I heard Snapchat's great. My daughter uses it. You should go play with that.
Right.
And
but if it gets you more clear on like creative, that's what I'd be interested in, right? Like Facebook is totally just chuck shit at the wall, right? Listen to your customers, obviously hit them with the hook and use their own language. But like it's chuck shit at the wall. You had a video of some guy screaming in front of an American flag, and that's the one that works, right? Totally. So if you can narrow that down and not chuck so much shit and feel like if I chuck a few things, get a little more targeted, get a little more clear on like who you're talking to.
Like quit the shotgun approach. Like, why do you want to use buckshot? Like at least use the slug, or if you can, put a scope on the thing, let's use a sniper rifle and really get granular if you can. And I really enjoy that. That's like where I kind of go weird and into the deep rabbit holes of things, but it's worked. It's awesome. Like I love it. And it's proven so far. So I'm like, okay, cool. This is a win. Let's keep doing this. But like the creative that hits, you're right. It's chuck shit at the wall. Like I could change headlines. I could change tags. I could change body. I could change landing pages. And it doesn't matter if it hits the psychographic data. If the creative isn't right, doesn't matter. Like you may launch it, you may hit a 2, and then you follow the psychographic data model, or you change some things up, write a little bit better copy, write a little bit better this, and change wording up, and you might hit a 2.5. But it's so rare that you throw something out there and you see a 6, 7, 8x out of the gate. You're just like, damn. Okay, now it's time to go. Like, bump that budget. Let's scale this thing. It's time to move. Strike while the iron's hot.
You got me super interested in downloading this app when we're off the call, especially if you're on the board. Let me know what the homie discount is on this.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And it's been just like really, really fun. So that's kind of where it stands right now. We're just in that mix and trying to grow this thing. And, unfortunately for 90% of the country, like COVID really crippled people, but we're in health and wellness, and it did not do that for us.
So I got a few other questions about your company, man, if you don't mind.
Keep going.
I remember talking to you. You were talking about how your collagen is like, you talk about the product being the best, right? And you talked about your collagen being like one source. Am I remembering that right? As far as like a lot of collagens on the market, and we don't need to name any companies, but like they're mixtures of sources where you're trying to get one source. And like, I'm a testament, man. I'll shoot you a video anytime. I put it in my coffee every single day in this cup.
Thank you.
And you dump it in, it's gone, right? And I actually enjoy the taste added to my coffee now. I'm a black coffee drinker, but I love it every single day. And so
that's awesome.
Can you tell me more about like how you got the best product on the market?
Yeah. So powders are a really weird thing. We'll talk the science of powders real quick. It's like there's hydrolyzation, there's agglomeration, and basically it changes the molecule size of how much surface area there is to absorb water and actually, they call it wettability, but it's basically how quickly shit dissolves. So food scientists, again, another weird component of humans in life, like that's a very special breed. Love them to death. I could never do that. It's beyond me. But they're chemists. They're mad scientists for the most part. They're the people that can make, a gummy bear taste like Swedish or taste like Welch's grape or whatever, they have those things. So the two components in collagen, hydrolyzation and agglomeration. Hydrolyzation gets the bioavailability up, makes your body absorb it. Agglomeration, depending on how often or what you're doing to it and stretching that agglomeration process, gives a wettability. The problem is there's a number of collagen manufacturers out there. There's probably 20 or 30 like raw material manufacturers that take, it'll be gross for some of these, but take cowhide and boil down the cowhide and create a powder out of it. of that, there are very few people that do it to the top tier. And what happens, especially in the last couple of years, as the collagen market has been doing this, it's like been like hockey stick, like beyond this rocket ship. Actually, it's not even a hockey stick. And it comes from gelatin. So Jello, think Jello. Gelatin market does this. And it's always done this. And it's been around, like it's in your capsules, it's in your pills, it's in pharma, it's in that type of stuff. Collagen kind of comes from the same component, cowhide, and does the skyrocket. So they have to balance between manufacturing. The gelatin market's 10 times the size of collagen. The gelatin market's like, 100 billion. Collagen's, 7. So they're making this balance of like, do we go consumer or do we go pharma like we've always done? And as the supply runs out, guess what? You can't source from one person anymore unless you're really tiny. You have to blend. So you start buying from other sources. And this is just basic logistics business stuff. Like quality goes down if you're not maintaining, a good source and a good logistics chain. And at some point as a business, if your demand goes too high, you are going to have to source from other components and blend. And that's a lot of the times what happens with some of these companies that run out of raw mat is they end up sourcing from other companies and blending. And, it's still a great product. It's just flavor profile. Like, does it taste like a cow's ass? Can you, smell farm? Like, cause that's a real thing. Like you can, like you'll open a tub and it'll smell kind of gamey and you're like, it's weird. And then beyond that, like, again, who's doing what to each supply. So they blend, it happens. It's still a good product. It still has the same amino profile. It probably still has a very similar bioavailability to what's advertised. But if you don't have to, I'm not going to. So
look, but that's a huge thing that when I work with companies, when I consult with them, that's a huge thing. Like that is half the battle in making this journey work is just simply having the best fucking product. And so, you mentioned it earlier and I wanted to deep dive why your product is like, I love it, man. I take it every single day. And so understanding why yours is better than the competition and then like being able to convey that, right? Like just, I don't know, somebody gets it home. You can have the best marketing and branding in the world. If they get it home and it smells like a cow's ass, you're not winning that battle, right?
And it is just the single source. Like we basically down to the farm on that stuff. And I've, again, ideas or wild rabbit holes that you get into. I was researching blockchain for a while, of just like, cause I didn't understand it. And I was just like, wow, how's this crypto shit work? Bitcoin, what? Like what's blockchain? You get into that and you start to realize the applications for real world business. And I started talking to people about blockchain and bringing blockchain into supplements because realistically across the board, nobody has a clue of the sourcing. For anything. Like, I mean, go to a GNC shelf and you tell me where something comes from. And like, it's a dark, dark rabbit hole to even get to the company for them to even tell you close to the country they got it from. So
you would use blockchain to verify where everything's coming from. And
exactly,
and, it's uneditable at that point, right?
To the point where I want to know the name of the cow.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not kidding. Like I want to RFID, like that's like future proofing. That's where I want to take the tech component of this business. And we're actually working with a farm currently. And Kurt, if you steal this idea, I will find you in Chicago and slash the tires on your Tesla. But what I'd like to do is I'm working with a farm right now in Brazil where they are processing. We're not using them in our product yet, but I want to get to a point with them where I can verify like almost the name of the cow or the location of the cow, like where it went geographically in the pastures to feed, what was happening to it, for no other reason than just transparency, because it's so hard to find good supplements that are completely transparent.
Yep.
Like that's the biggest problem with this industry, I feel like. And from, both being a consumer and now being immersed in it, there's not a lot of dark, hidden, nasty stuff, but there is a lot of unknowns and you really have to dig. And there's good doctors and shit that out there that test and good testing models. And I mean, one of the things that we do is we NSF certify everything of our products top to bottom. It gets a little expensive, but MLB can take it. NHL can take it. Like it verifies both quality sourcing as well as like no additives, drugs, heavy metals, like performance enhancing stuff, like anything top to bottom. We NSF certify everything top to bottom, our whole company. And a lot of people don't do that. There's very few companies that actually push that process. So again, adding to the quality, how can we stamp this independently and make sure it's good? It's like the same thing in the weed, the CBD market. Independent testing kind of yields to a better feeling for a consumer. Any consumer that buys anything for us can know It's independently certified. NSF has done it. Every single batch, every single lot, every single production run. The other thing, we like Whole30. We just got Whole30 certified a couple of days ago. We're like just getting ready to push that in the market. And Whole30, same thing. Like they want clean ingredients. And it's not necessarily from a sourcing component as much as it is like how much shit are you blending into a tub, and not necessarily sources of collagen, but like what else are you putting in there? Are you putting in stevia? Are you putting in sweeteners? Are you putting in colors, additives, preservatives? How clean is your mixture? So we got our whole line Whole30 certified. So it's like just adding that consumer confidence of like, yo, we really walk the walk. And like, you know, that's kind of where we're at. It's like nobody else does it that I see. And there's a lot of big companies out there that are really good, that I respect their marketing and everything. But when it comes to the quality of the product, it's like, yeah, kind of good luck on whether or not you're actually coming to a, you know, a good top to bottom beyond marketing.
But you just hit some really cool points there, right? You went the extra mile to do stuff that you didn't need to do to go get NSF certified, so that, you know, Major League Baseball will bring you in. And I know you're working with a bunch of teams already, right? Whole30, that's a huge brand. Obviously not as big as Major League Baseball, but Whole30 is a big brand, and people are cult-like, right?
Yeah, it's possibly like, I mean, in all honesty, like social following wise, it's probably bigger than MLB. Dude, they have like 6 or 7 properties here.
But you embody like everything I believe in econ. You're going the extra mile. You're doing the extra thing so that you can work with MLB, so that you can work with Whole30.
Yeah.
Heck, that's your fucking cell phone number on your website. That's bananas to me, man, that it actually rings on your phone. Like you're going the extra mile in all these places. You have the best product. You're doing the extra certifications. You put your own cell phone number on there. You answer all your own emails. Like all the things that you do in e-commerce are everything I wish I could, you know, portray to everybody I'm trying to consult with. I want to do them in my own business, right? Like you're someone to look up to when it comes to doing the right things.
Man. I mean, I don't even know if it's the right things. Like inherently for me, like I want to know what people think. I really want to give people a good product. Like, believe me, I've sold plenty of things in my life where it's bad quality. That's easy. It's super, super easy to do. Like, and to be honest with you, like there's plenty of stuff out there that's just like kind of haphazard put together. It's put together to the best of somebody's abilities. But again, going back to the beginning of the podcast, the best of like being driven, no, there's always room for improvement. You're always on the road to mastery. So how much extra can I do? And that's just because like it's my business. I really, really give a shit about what people think, how we're treating people, what's happening. If it's working for people, like I don't want to put something out there. Again, that's the DNA of this business. We don't put something out there that's like half-assed with Glenn's name on it. Like, come on, dude, an American hero, died for his country, like that type of stuff. Like that's not cool. That's taking advantage at that point, as far as I'm concerned.
I feel like you've crossed a hump that if there's not a book on this, there should be. People get started, it seems like, in entrepreneurship. I know I did, chasing dollars. Then you get the dollars, you realize you're not fucking happy. You start doing inner work and you realize, okay, now I need to like build something I believe in, and you get super passionate about it. You do all this extra stuff. I don't know what that crest is where you pop over realizing money doesn't make you happy and you need to have like purpose. But wherever that is, like the people I talk to who truly do all the right stuff in their business, they've gone over that hump, right? And realized cash flow is easy, but the purpose isn't. For me,
it's having it and losing it. And realizing it doesn't affect my general day-to-day one way or another. Like, I mean, really, when I think about it, like I could be living in a trailer, like, you know, in the middle of a dirt patch somewhere. I'm still going to get up and meditate, and I'm going to get some form of exercise, and I'm going to have a cup of coffee. That's like, and I'm going to hang out with my dog. Like that. I mean, those are like just the basic needs that are taken care of, Maslow's hierarchy type stuff. It's like, I'm going to check all of those boxes. With or without money, something's going to happen some way. And, you know, I'll always have some sort of job or be employable. So if I'm making 40 grand a year, I'm doing those things. If I'm making 400 grand a year, I'm doing those things. It doesn't matter, somewhere in between. But beyond having a lot, having none, for me really came with getting or starting a company or doing something with a greater purpose. Like I needed something that was bigger than me, bigger than what I gave a shit about, bigger than like just cashing checks or making credit cards, you know, go through. Like it was like, what else can I do that was bigger and bigger than the company and bigger than anything? Like, I mean, the biggest trigger for me is for me in this business was Mike, one of the guys that we use in an ad. Again, one of my best friends, and knowing that Sean had 2 black SUVs come up to his house and tell him that his best friend had died. If that would happen to me with Mike, and knowing that he had a little girl, I'd feel like shit not to be able to do something for somebody similar. So if I can help give scholarships to people that are considering leaving the military and contracting, great job, a lot of money, but put them into a different area, whether they want to go to trade school, be a pilot, go get their PhD, go get their MBA, whatever it is. Like if I can add to that and give them a little bit of breathing room financially and a little bit of runway to do something else other than put themselves in harm's way and potentially not come home to the wife and kids, I've done something decent. I can sleep at night no matter what happens. And that's really it. Like I looked at Hazel and I was like, that really sucked. Like I don't want a car coming up to my house and telling me my best friend's dead. Absolutely not. Like I do not want that at all. And I don't want that for anybody else. So it's like finding that little bit of bigger purpose and drive. I'll tell you what, like that's the win for me, like literally every day. And it's no bullshit. I mean, that's a motivator. It gets up and you're just like, you're in the shitter, something's not working, ads aren't working or whatever. And you still are able to lean back and be like, you know what? It ain't about the cash flow right now. It ain't about, how many units we're moving on Amazon. That obviously helps grow the charity. It helps grow everything along with it. That's perfect. But we still gave $100,000 to charity. Like that's huge.
What's cool about what you do is like a lot of companies, and I'm heavily air quoting here, give to charity. Yeah. You take 10% of your revenue, not 10% of your profit, 10% off the top. Yeah. I bet there's a lot of entrepreneurs listening who can't imagine taking just 10% right off the top, right? Like
it is a very, very hard model to maintain. And there's been a lot of, maybe you want to say reevaluation, but basically how do we scale two things together? How do we continue to give more money, but also build the business? Because 10% off the top of $1 million is crippling. I'm not fucking kidding. Like, I mean, in all honesty, like if somebody's thinking about doing the 10% right off the top, don't fucking do it. Like, unless you want to roll a rock uphill, just avoid it like the plague, do profits and scale first and then start giving more money. Like that's the smart way to do it. But Lake and I are boneheaded. I mean,
yeah, but you're having fun and you're doing good. Like it's amazing, man.
Yeah, for sure. But like it does cripple your scale, and like what if you that's where you maxed out? Like what if that's where you stopped? It was $1 million a year and you're only giving, $100,000 a year to a charity. Well, that's stupid. What if I'm doing 20 million, but I'm doing 10% of profits at that point? Well, dude, then I'm giving like 300, 400, 500 grand to charity. Okay, cool. This makes sense. How do I scale that up? So right now we're just in the dance of like balancing that and figuring out, okay, how do we scale more and still give more to charity, but also like, how do they feed each other, so to speak? It's been like a battle since the beginning, but yeah, it is a balance and I don't recommend it to anybody. Not from a charity side, like absolutely no problem giving money away and doing all that stuff. I mean, obviously that's, part of Lake's life is just helping others just in general, but it is a hard model to maintain. Like, no kidding.
I know you're trying to grow really fast, right? And you're trying to get in, like you just talked about Costco. Certainly when I was on a call with you, I don't know, a month ago or so, you were talking about getting into other retailers. Have you thought about, I don't want to say forcing, that's the wrong word, but forcing that 10% onto them? Like, let's say Costco bought it for you at 60% off, right? That's where they bought it from you, and you say, we're going to add 6% to that, and we'll match we'll match it, or we'll hit half and half. And so everybody looks good here, right? Because everybody wants to give to charity. All those companies want to do good.
Yeah, we don't do that. We don't force it on anybody, and it's not for a reason of other than, we don't want to force it onto a consumer, and we don't want to force it onto a business that's bringing us on to support us. That's our call. That's not a well, hey, we're going to tack this on because this is what we do. I'm sure it would work. Like, there's no doubt in my mind it would work. But like, if you do price comparison, like, right, Vital's $43 a tub. We're $43 a tub. Like, we're not charging 10% extra and passing it on to the consumer and then passing it through. Like, we just really want to take it like on ourselves to make it happen.
But that might be the edge you need to grow faster, right? If you split that with Costco, right, then that gives you some money back to grow faster, right, and give more.
And fortunately, we've had a lot of really, really good partners of, whether or not we were using a PR firm or using, and this is kind of where it happens on the back end, but it doesn't come off our bill by any stretch. They're just donating a portion of our bill. So if somebody's like, hey, we're going to do, a project for you, or we're going to sign a platform agreement with you, it's going to be $2,500 a month. We're going to donate $250 a month to charity. Okay, cool. And they're, typically pushing it to the GDMF, the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. But we inherently don't ask for that. Like, again, it's like if the story resonates with somebody and they're happy to do it, we're not going to say no, obviously. But we're also not going to force it on somebody or ask for a discount. Now, price negotiation wise or anything like that, like, yeah, that's very upfront. Like, our margins are razor thin. Like, if you want to work with us or you want us in your fold, whether it's, we use Zeus for an email service provider. It's, it's like in my opinion, a step above Klaviyo, which is a step above MailChimp, et cetera. Everybody's kind of got their own thing. You want to use ActiveCampaign, Drip, ConvertKit, doesn't matter. We're on Zeus. I love the platform. With them, they had a really hefty intro tag. We should have been able to do it if we weren't giving money to charity. Because I had to defer them for a while. And it was just like, hey, this is the way it's at. Eventually they came around. They're like, yo, we want to work with you too. We see all the cool shit you're doing. Like, how can we split the difference? How can we make something happen? Like, and there's always a trade in the negotiation stuff. So it's like, can we give you half a platform? Can we give you this minus 5 features? Do we have to have hand holding and onboarding with you? Like, where can we make things work? And fortunately, like, a lot of people and a lot of providers are really receptive to that with us. And it's an absolute blessing because, if my budget was unlimited, yeah, no problem. Like, what's rack rate? Cool. Pay it, or negotiate a little bit, pay it. Like, let's go and let's run. But we've also had to be really selective on that, starting with MailChimp. And then, like, you're growing a list and you're paying $125 a month. And it's like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden you look at the options that exist within Klaviyo or exist within other platforms. And you're like, man, that would be really cool. I could do so much with that. Oh, but it's double the price. Yeah. Shit. And then you're back and forth on that because, again, when you're starting a business, every dollar does count. Like, cash flow.
There's a lesson in there too, though, right? Like, everything's actually negotiable. All of those apps, all of those plugins, everything. Moise Ali from Native Deodorant, I was playing poker with him at eCommerce Fuel Live, and he was like, "Hey, man, you shouldn't be paying all that stuff." He's like, "Call them up, and everybody will go down to like half price." And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, you totally can, for sure, 100%. But yeah, it's crazy, and yeah, you just have to be cognizant of it, and it resonates with a lot of people, and some people it doesn't resonate with. I mean, there's plenty of consumers out there like, fuck it, I don't care about your charity. Okay, cool, whatever. And and I'm sure some of our consumer base, just in general, that buys our product, I'm sure not everybody knows we give. We try to like make it known, but I'm sure people are just like, yo, you got a good product and it works for me. And what is it, the WIFM model? What's in it for me? Like, yeah, that's it. What's in it for me? Does it work for me? Are we good? Am I a little bit selfish? Cool. Okay, we're making a good product for those people. I'm checking that box. I'm good. I'll sleep at night. If the charity resonates with you as well, even better.
So I have a question, and it's selfish. You're in some Major League Baseball clubs, right? I sponsor a young Minnesota Twins player. You ship some stuff to him for me, which is really, really cool. And you're like, yeah, pretty sure we're already in this clubhouse. We're in, and you named off team after team after team. I'm a big baseball junkie, and so how did you do that, man? How did you navigate into the world of Major League Baseball and get into clubhouses?
Interestingly enough, it again fell into our lap. We NSF certified our product for no other reason than getting top of marks. Like, what can we do with this? Here's the lanes that will potentially open. Doesn't matter. No, consumer gets a good product. Okay, cool. NSF certify our product. One of the people at NSF hit us up and said, yo, there's not many people that are certified in college, and you're one of the only companies, and you're doing it top to bottom in your line. Do you want to come to the baseball winter meetings? What the hell are those? Not a baseball person. Yeah. I grew up with the Tigers, if that says anything. So I was just like, my family loves them just because like it's a local team, but like they didn't win very much.
That's what you do in the Midwest. You support your teams. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, cool. We'll watch Tigers games, but does it really matter to me? That's not my shit. So I was like, what's winter meetings? Let's go. And it's like, well, it's where all the strength and conditioning coaches and trainers and everything from every team come in, both minors, majors, blah, blah, blah. And you get to meet them. You get to put up a booth and there's a table. We get a table at this conference. Hell yeah. Like, let's make it happen. Like, we have no idea what's going on. This is December, January of like 2018, I think, like early 2018, January 2018, December 2017 or something like that. And we get in this winter meeting. It's at like the Mandalay Bay or something like that. And I mean, like, and I'm sure you've been to like different events at like Mandalay, like the big event room, the conference center and everything like that. It's huge, right? Like, I'm miles of walking, like 10 miles a day walking. It just gets stupid.
Yeah, this is an understatement, right? This is a big deal. This is like the event of the winter for baseball. Like, all the VPs are there, the general managers are there, the owners are there, players are striking deals. Like, this is huge.
Oh yeah, dude, there's tons of players there. Like, it's cool. Yeah. But the funny thing is, like, we're like, oh, it's at the Mandalay. This is going to be massive. It's going to be 10 miles of walking. There's going to be so much stuff there. We get there and it is in like, no offense to MLB, but it's like, I mean, it's in like the bootleg, like back conference room where the dude has like an overhead projector and he's writing on a white screen type thing. Like, I mean, it's a tiny, and they did it right. You know, like, it's really tight knit. It's really comfortable. But at the same time, it's an educational experience for a lot of the trainers and a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of internal where we can get all the teams together and sell in either new ways of thinking, new methodologies, have presentations, and get everybody kind of on the right path, because they do want what's good for their players and they do want what's good for their team and their league as a whole. There's all of that there, but it's a lot of that. And then it's about 1 hour a day that you get a rush meeting with all of the strength and conditioning coaches and trainers. And so we went there and we set up a table and we were like, oh, what are we going to do? Let's do something cool. There's always like, we always had the action sports mentality of like, how are we taking care of people like the snowboard companies took care of us at the shops, like making cool stuff, forward thinking, like, do we want beanies? Do we want, Yetis, whatever. So we etched out like 40 or 50 Yeti mugs, like at $30 a pop, like laser etched them with our logos. And that was like the hit. Strangely enough, nobody else thought of that. So we get in there, we're the only one with Yeti mugs, and it blows up. One, college and like a hot market for these guys. They have topics on it in some of their meetings outside of the room. They all come in and everybody wants the Yeti mug. So you want the Yeti mug, have a conversation with us. Like, and
you want to put coffee in there and put some Bubs in there too.
Yeah.
Right?
And nothing deep. Just like, tell us about yourself, where you're from, what team you're doing, like what's your background. And we start meeting all of these people in the whole industry of MLB, like all of the strength and conditioning coaches, all of the trainers are like so knowledgeable, so cool. And the uphill battle, interesting enough, is like getting the players on the right track, because inherently most of them just want to eat Kodiak cakes. And so it's like they have this battle, but they want people to avoid Tommy John surgery and everything else. So they're trying to just make their players healthy for a long term. And we meet these guys and we open like right out of the gate after those meetings. And it was like, we drove our stuff out to Vegas. We drove back like overnight. Like, it was just a quick in and out. And we closed up like, I don't know, 15 or 17 of the teams of just like verbal commits. Yeah, we're buying. And they actually went through. And then this past year we did the meetings again. They were in San Diego. So it was an easier drive this time. And then it's a relationship. Dude, you really helped like a lot of our folks out. Like, that was super cool. And this year, same thing. Like, what can we do that goes above and beyond? Let's get bats made from War Stick and dip them in Bubs colors and put our logos on them and hand them out to all the people that like make a difference to us. So we did Yetis, we did bats, we did some cool stuff. And like, again, like, thanks a lot for your business. Like, we want to give this to you. This is super cool, we think, and hopefully it resonates with you. And a lot of people it did. And same thing. More teams jump on and more teams are like, it's kind of incestuous. They all talk to each other. So they're like, so-and-so at the Blue Jays says your stuff's really good. And so-and-so at the Red Sox.
Right. And players move too, right? And trainers move across organizations, and they probably are like, 100%. I miss having Bubs in the clubhouse.
Exactly. So they start placing orders. And it's not, I mean, full transparency for anybody looking to get into it, you're not making a channel out of this, so to speak. Like, it ain't going to be 2/3 of your revenue. Don't chase that dream. There's a lot. It does work. It adds to the bottom line. It's really nice. There's no marketing that comes off of it. I can't anywhere say we're the official collagen of the New York Yankees or the Mets or whomever. It just, you can't. You got to buy into that. Interestingly enough, like there is a collagen company out there that sponsors a home team in their city, and we are actually the one in the clubhouse, and they're the one on the banners in the stadium.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's super funny.
Are you able to reach out to any of the players themselves? I mean, everybody's got their own social media nowadays, and certainly some of those younger players who are making league minimum, which is still $500K, but That's pretty fucking low, right? Like they've been grinding for 6
years,
8, 9 years just to make that. Is there any way you can reach out to them and have them just on their social media pouring it in their cup?
So there's, it's funny. I just had an invite come up from Tyler Gaffney, who is a Patriots, an ex-Patriots player, an invite for a meeting.
Nice.
Yeah, it's super funny. But
on the investor side?
No. He's actually just loves our product. And he probably wants to work out. He lives in Carlsbad now. Nice. But yeah, super cool, dude. So yeah, you're asking, do players reach out or can I reach out to players? We don't reach out to players. Our outreach is negligible, not strategically and not arrogantly, but like literally we just don't want to, like, we want it top down from the authorities inside. If that's going to be the case, like we don't want to step on anybody's toes at, the Chicago Cubs and be like, hey, we're going to reach out to so-and-so. Are you cool with that? Like if they say their players should take it, they can hit us up. But we've had players reach out to us independently of, yo, this is in the clubhouse. I want it at my house too. What's up? And we've had some pretty big players that have jumped on board that were just like, holy shit, this is really weird.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be a real opportunity for some UGC, right? Like if you just got
totally.
And any player out there to be able to run a remarketing ad with that and target, somebody with a baseball interest.
Yeah, and like God, I'm trying to think. There's one of the pitchers for the Cubs. I don't know players. I'm terrible, so I apologize to anybody. It's like you don't even know who you're selling to. I know there's a dude for the Mets that, what's his name, the Viking or something like that, Skarsgård, or I don't know.
Thor?
Yeah. Noah
Syndergaard?
Yes, thank you, Syndergaard. I'm sorry, dude. I'm so, you have no idea. I'm so sorry.
This guy's a personality in baseball too, right? Yeah.
I know. I'll tell you surfers, snowboarders all day long when it comes to like pro stick and ball players. I'm the worst. No, I'm just like, if somebody ends up hearing this, they're gonna be like, wow, he's a fucking idiot. But yeah, so Syndergaard reached out to us and he was like, hey, like I want the product. Okay, cool. We send them some stuff. We don't ask for anything on the back end though. Like, I mean, here, this is the stuff. Your clubhouse already buys it. If you want it in the house, cool. If you're going to post about it independently and say it's the best thing since sliced bread, cool, all day long. We may or may not ask to use it, but like we've had, plenty. We do have a litany of testimonials and like selfie videos and stuff like that that are sitting on like the Love Me file inside, Google Drive, where it's like pat on the back, here's some cool wins. But we don't really push any of that stuff just because we'd have to get so much buy off from agents and everything else. Because of Sean's background with action sports and running Burton snowboard team and running DC snowboard team and kind of building that from the ground up, the agent side is a little weird. So we have like a couple snowboarders, pro snowboarders and ex-pro snowboarders that use stuff, but they're in contracts with people like Rockstar and Monster and stuff. And those are kind of ironclad for the most part. So asking for Torstein Horgmo, who's, an Olympic medalist snowboarder, to do a video, which he has for us, and then clear it with his agent to clear it with Rockstar to be like, yo, can these guys post this too? And Rockstar to be like, not happening.
Yeah, but I know you, okay. Right? You know backdoors, you know the hacks, right? Like how hard would it be to get, and again, we'll just name Noah Syndergaard because he brought it up. How hard would it be for him to do a Facebook Live or an Instagram story and just happens to have Bub Collagen sitting in the background? Like there's a million ways you could go about this, right?
Totally. And that is kind of like the gray area that the league's like, if it happens to be there, whatever. We haven't pushed that super hard. At some point, I mean, 100% we'll get there, but like it's more surprising and like cool to us internally. We're like, holy shit, this happened. Yeah. Holy shit, this happened. Can you believe this?
So I consulted with a couple gentlemen I hope to have on the podcast that they run recoveryforathletes.com, which is like all recovery tools. Yeah. And I would say weekly on our calls, they would be like, guess who ordered from us today? You know what I mean? And like, they would be so thrilled about it. So I'm envious, right? Like if Noah Syndergaard reached out to me, I'd be like, hell yeah. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's an action sport person for you, right? But like, I don't know. I'm a huge baseball junkie. So to hear these stories, it's
more than anything for me. It's like, wow, you're a master of your craft. You're at the top of your sport, whatever it is. I don't care if you're, world poker champion. I don't care if you're a Formula One driver. It's just like, I respect the amount of time and effort, despite the fact that you might have natural talents. Like, I know it takes a lot of work. I know it takes a lot of sacrifice. I've seen it across the board. I've tried it with cycling, and made it barely through California. It's a commitment and it's hard. And
since you're not a baseball guy, just for reference, Noah's like top 15 in all of baseball.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
So we also do a collab with 7 Cold Brew, which is, God. And again, once again, names are forgiven, but Padres MVP player, pitcher, relief pitcher. I don't know his name. Fuck it. He's going to kill me too.
I'm not even going to help you. I just want to see you suffer through this one.
Yeah. Do you know who it is?
I may know who it is. I'm just going to let you suffer though.
Yeah, I'm never going to figure out the name. I'd have to pull up Instagram and go through and be like, I'm going to Google right now, like, who's Seven Cold Brew again? But like, yeah, Keith Bell. There we are. Yeah, just took me 10. But yeah, like we did a collab, like MCT. He has a cold brew company, which is freaking bananas. Cold brew, like it's pre-canned, and he owns this. He has a proprietary patented process for cold brew, making cold brew coffee, and he infuses it with Bubs Collagen and MCT. We have a collab with him. The shit really tastes amazing. Like it's incredible. Not just plugging that. Like we were really surprised on it, but like even like get that type of reach out, and we're just like. One, you talk about the driven, like this dude worked his ass off from the minors for years to get to the majors, to protect his spot in the majors for a little bit of time. You know, it's like you see this much and it looks like this much, but his career is really like those memes of like the icebergs where it's like this much at the top and there's your major league career and everything else is beneath the surface of the ocean.
Right.
And then you just get to hear his stories. And I was chopping it up with him at a CrossFit event because he was just handing out his cold brew at a CrossFit event in San Diego. And, you know, he's talking about, you know, the names that I knew from collecting Topps cards as a kid for whatever reason. But like, he was like, oh yeah, you know, talk about Roger and Junior and these people. And I'm like, Roger? Like, I don't know. He's on first name basis with these guys. And he's talking about Roger Clemens, you know, and he's talking Junior, Ken Griffey Jr. And he's got these dudes on speed dial. And I'm like, all right, now we're talking like top tier shit. And I'm like, this guy's like, he's like, yeah, I'm going to call Junior up right now and tell him to take some collagen. That's what he needs. And I'm just like, what? No way. Cool. And then I forget about it. And like, again, you know, 10 minutes later, I won't remember anybody's name. So
nice. Look, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I know you're trying to potentially raise right now. Like, give some insight to me and to the audience, like where you're going, right? Like I had a little pitch call with you. Number one, your valuations are fucking bananas. I don't even know how you get to them. I want a company like that. I kind of want a part of your company, if I'm honest with you. But like, where are you going? What is the opportunity that lies in front of you?
So the opportunity is stopped. Not kidding. We decided that, COVID spike actually just really helped us out. We were not in a cash flow pinch. We were not in a cash flow hurt, a crisis, or anything like that. And we decided, due to state of the economy, 22 million people being unemployed, everything else, that one, taking VC money is probably bad because they're going to look at us really weird at this point and be like, yeah, we're not sinking money into anybody. They're going to want a lot of control. They're going to want a lot of answers. And this is just talking with many, many people on that side, groups of people that are running big rounds, et cetera, et cetera. We were thinking about doing like a friends and family round, but raising a decent clip from homies or from strategic partners that are like, that we could leverage in our, not like a strategic, like a Cabo Ventures or something like that, but like small strategic people. Like I can go to Ben's going to help me with SEO. He's going to add a little bit of value to the company and buy in, and we're all going to win together. We shut all of that down, and we're going to chase that in Q4 now. And in terms of the valuation, I mean, for full honesty, like CPG in general, the way it works, and I did not know this getting into this. I found this out about 4 months ago. CPG is valued typically on forward money. So whatever your projections are at the end of a 12-month cycle is what you base your valuation on. And the multiple usually sits 5 to 6x. We have put a lot of technology underneath it, which has increased our multiple slightly just due to data warehouses, maintaining event paths, and overall analysis of what happens in our business on our site with our consumers, whether it's a one-to-one, did Ben come to the site, open this email, et cetera, et cetera. That gets a little granular and weird, also privacy-wise. But I do know that I'll have 25 people that click this email, and I can go backwards and say, here's the patterns of the business. So I've built a data warehouse almost since the beginning of the business to move forward with it, to understand macro view 30,000 foot of what happens with a consumer through our site and the change over time, so that I can couple that to anybody that would come in both as an investment side or as an acquisition side and be like, that's cool. I know you look at all of these businesses as, hey, this is an acquisition model. How do we grow this by cutting costs? But what if I'm going to sell you all the consumer data? Well, all the consumer data too, but also like beyond Google Analytics. What if I sell you the micro data of what happens without names attached to it? Where does that take you? And so we've had some good luck with that valuation too, and some good validation on that. So,
but as a guy who's look, I've sold a few businesses. And I bought a few businesses, and all of them come from like, empireflippers.com or quietlightbrokers.com or all of those. They all kind of model the same as like, they'll take your yearly profit and they'll multiply it somewhere between 3 and 6, right? Depending on the size of the business. And then when I met some of the other folks in that mastermind and some people that are in skincare, which is just bananas, they're taking like, they're taking like if you had a good month, right? Let's say you had this crazy April, then they'll be like, well, we're obviously going to do that for the next 11, right? And they'll take that over the next 12 months of where you think you might go because you scaled so much from one month to the next month. And then they multiply that revenue, not even like the profit. Like it's really crazy to me how, people are coming in to invest, or companies are coming to acquire you, betting on this home run, betting on that really long-term play. And it's hard for me to even think that far out of like how you're going to recoup that money.
It's cool. It's like, honestly, like that is a long-term play. That's somebody at Kellogg that comes around. I mean, you look at the acquisitions in the CPG space over the last couple of years. You look at RX Bar, $660 million in 4 years. You look at Vega, vegan protein, they're like $500 million to Silk or something like that. And these are all off top line forward valuation type stuff. I mean, just massive acquisitions that are crazy. Or if somebody's buying a chunk of a company for $100 million and the company's doing well, it's usually only like 10 or 20%. It's a very odd space. I don't know if it will last forever. I've been to plenty of conferences where people say that, it's a shifting lens all the time. Like it happens one year, it doesn't happen next year, et cetera, et cetera. You've seen stories of Sunbum, sunscreen, their acquisition model and everything like that. Like there's some big eggs, some people that have been involved with that stuff. And one of the investors in Sunbum that started like Neff Headwear and a couple other things, he's been around the block and back for good companies and bigger acquisitions. The one he's playing with right now, and he's got like a little conglomerate that's super diversified, but it's in cosmetics, and it's CPG, but cosmetics. And because he's there and he had the experience in Sunbum, it's like an 8 to 10x multiple. So if I was going to do it again, I'd go that direction. Like Kylie Cosmetics, I know why she does what she does. Like, ColourPop, any of those people, you're just like, oh yeah. Like that's why you're holding on, because it's going to crush when Revlon comes along and says, hey, I need all of your people, but I know it's going to cost me $1 billion.
I really, really wish I cared about skincare. I had something fall in my lap. I'll tell you when we get off a recording here. And like, if I had any inkling to go into skincare, I've got something that just kind of fell to me. But it's crazy that like, I know somebody that exited for 10x revenue, and that just blew my mind.
It's wild. It's super cool.
Wow. So where's Bubs going from here, man? Obviously, you're talking about possibly working with Costco. I'm sure you want to get into some retailers, but where are you going from here?
So we're gonna do lightweight retail, strategic retail. That's always been on the plan for 2020. You knew that kind of when we were talking about the investment round and everything originally. So we will go retail. We're probably going to go bigger than what we anticipated, just due to the mix up that's happening. We'll take this and grow direct to consumers. March was up 40% over February. February, was good. February was really good, we were on a trend beating Black Friday, Cyber Monday, November, December. January, we beat November. February, we beat it again. So we've just been on this uptick, and then March hit March 15th specifically, and it just rocket shipped. So we're up 40% over February from March, and April's up 50% over March from so
good for you guys.
It's really fun, and we're really, really fortunate, incredibly fortunate this is happening. So we're going to ride it out and try to maintain as much control and as much, solid conservative growth of the business over the next little bit without getting wild, because we do have a lot of work and a lot of juggling at this point. I have the ability to go out and get a new email platform. I have the ability to go out and upgrade to Shopify Plus now. So I'm doing all these micro tweaks to just add building blocks and add foundational support to it that we can continue to hopefully have sustained growth through the rest of the year. Then we'll approach the forward valuation again, probably, Q4, and see what happens, and look at a strategic or look at some investors to help us even get to that next level. Because inherently, and this is why I say don't typically go to CPG if you're your game is grocery, it's a bad model. Like the grocery is very, very hard. And like, if you want to make $1 million in grocery stores, start with 2 million. Like it's kind of that game right now. It's pay to play. It's pay for shelf space, pay for marketing, play for slotting. There's free fills that go involved. So people want like, hey, if I'm going to order a case of collagen, it's in our documents that we get 1 case for free. But yeah, but you're already getting it wholesale. Like, why do I have to give you a case for free too? But that's like just how grocery works. Yeah. So we'll concentrate on that eventually. And I'm going to have to plug this thing in because I'm at like 3% battery. But yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going for the rest of the year. But you know, I don't know, it might change tomorrow. Who knows?
Well, you know me, I'd love to help. If there's ever an opportunity, hit me up.
Appreciate it.
I'll save your battery. How can people reach out to you if they want to reach out to you, man? This was a really cool conversation.
Yeah, hit me, TJ@bubsnaturals.com. And I do answer like 99% of my emails unless you're pitching me something, and then you'll probably get a couple red emails and no response. And then if it's really good, I'll reach out to you.
Dude, and I legit take this stuff every day. So if you're listening and you take college protein from one of the other companies, go to Bubs Naturals and buy it from there, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for being on, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Wow, what a cool journey to listen to from TJ Ferrara. If you take collagen protein, or if you thought about taking collagen protein, go to bubsnaturals.com and support what they're doing over there. They have a very cool mission, and he would very much appreciate your business. I would also very much appreciate if you went to thebkshow.com and left a review on iTunes. It would mean a lot, and I'd love any feedback you have on this podcast. So thanks so much for listening to this long one, and we'll see you next Wednesday.